Hello everyone, Xeno What If here. Bring in Season 2 Part 9 of What If the Transformers Crash Landed in Code Geass. Link in the description of the fanfiction of this What If. Listen here YouTube. I do not own anything and this is not a scam. Flying Mind. Megatron stood at the power core of the still-downed Nemesis, multiple crates of energon surrounding him and ready to be infused into the power core. However, given how much of an advantage his enemies had over him, desperate times called for desperate measures. Despite the protests of many of his lieutenants and allies, Megatron felt confident in this approach, as he is the only being in this world, or this universe, that is capable of controlling anything infused with the blood of Unicron. The power core's automatic system, which worked in the form of a claw-like device, reached to a crate containing dark energon, as opposed to its more natural counterpart, and placed it directly into the infuser, installing the dark substance into the power core as Megatron pulled up on the manual lever. The dark energon already began to take effect as Starscream, Steeljaw, Skybite, and Soundwave observed from behind. The entire power core began to glow purple as the dark energon spread from the core throughout the rest of the Nemesis via the tubes that connected the core to all the main systems. All systems that had suffered damage were almost instantly repaired, including all the electrical and data streams. Unbeknownst to anyone, however, the spreading energy made its way into the ship's memory banks, primarily to the Yakin database that had been put on the backseat for the time being. Megatron could feel it in his very being. His optics glowing bright purple, even his dark Geass manifested as he felt the power of the Nemesis itself connecting with him. Yes, I can feel it. Horai Island, the Ark. An alarm sounded on the bridge of the main Autobot ship, causing the artificial intelligence of the vessel to spring to life as she appeared in her hologram form. Oh boy, that's not good. TAI, what is it? Lelouch asked as he and Optimus were already alerted. The Ark's long-ranged scanners have picked up a massive surge of dark energon. TAI reported. It appears to be coming from the same location of where we last left the Nemesis in the Pacific Ocean. Megatron must be using the substance to repair his damaged vessel. Optimus deduced. In all likelihood, he realizes how much of a disadvantage he will be if we manage to rally the world's nations behind us and seeks to gain whatever power he can. He's getting desperate, Lelouch said with a scowl. We've seen what dark energon can do. If he's infusing the Nemesis with it, I don't even want to think of the consequences. TAI, rally as many of our forces as we can muster. The Zero Squad, Black Dragon, Elite Guard, Aerial Bots, Wreckers, even the Black Wyverns and Crimson Knights. We're preparing for a full-scale assault on the Nemesis before it can get any ground. I'm on it. TAI's holographic mode vanished as she began to alert the Black Knights and Autobots. Lelouch, I understand why you feel that we have to stop Megatron, and I agree that the Nemesis being powered by dark energon could have catastrophic implications. Optimus told him. However, in this circumstance, I believe it is necessary to consider a more extreme measure. Both leaders stood in the Ark's storage area as one of the vault doors was opened to reveal a certain Decepticon weapon of mass destruction. The Spark Extractor. To say Lelouch was shocked would be an understatement. Optimus, are you sure about this? I mean, I understand the reasoning. Best case scenario, we can kill Megatron with this, and many of his top lieutenants, which will send the remainder of the Decepticon forces into disarray. 6 months ago, I probably wouldn't have hesitated to use a weapon like this. But I never imagined you would. While I am deeply reluctant to deploy a weapon of this caliber, especially one forged by Decepticon hands, it is as you said, Lelouch. Optimus explained. This will bring us closer to ending the war once and for all. Lelouch already said he understood the implications of why the Spark Extractor should be used, and he agreed that it could indeed bring the war to an end soon, and he would personally love the idea of ending Megatron's existence for everything he did. It still left a bad taste in his mouth. However, in this circumstance, he may just have to stomach it. Alright, but let one of the Black Knights carry it. Lelouch said. Suzaku, Colin, Toto, or even Rai. This weapon is deadly to all Cybertronians, but not to humans. If one of us deploys it, we should be unharmed. Very well. Optimus agreed. The Nemesis, now infused with dark energon and fully operational, arose from the ocean it was once submerged in. It rose almost as if something that was once deceased had emerged from the grave it was buried in to seek vengeance on those that put it there. Two large ground bridge portals opened up in the air to reveal two large airships controlled by the Black Knight Autobot Alliance, the Ikaruga and the Granberry. The Ikaruga was being manned by Claus and Euphemia, with the command crew at the controls. On top of the Ikaruga stood Optimus, Bumblebee, RC, Bulkhead, Ironhide, Wheeljack, Geass, and Smokescreen. The Granberry was commanded by Layla, Toto and her own command crew. Standing on top of the red vessel were Elita 1, Ultra Magnus, Prowl, Sideswipe, Strongarm, Grindcore, Chromia, Warpath, Hotshot, and Drift. Even Grimlock stood on the Granberry alongside them. Exiting from the portals behind the two large vessels were several dozen airborne Black Knight Nightmares led by Zero's Shinkiro with the Lancelot, Gurren, Raiden, Pink Akatsuki, Gawain Narian, Agravain, and at its sides, along with the jet modes of Silverbolt, Jetfire, Air Raid, and Wind Blade, with the Lancelot carrying the Spark Extractor. Behind them were the remaining Nightmares of the Zero Guard, Crimson Knights, Elite Guard, Black Dragon, Black Wyverns and Wreckers. Every human and Cybertronian present looked towards the Decepticon warship with expressions of fear or determination. They all knew this would be the fight of their lives. Megatron stood on the bridge of the Nemesis with Starscream, Knockout, Steeljaw, and Skybite by his side as Soundwave walked forward to show an image of the assembled enemy forces on his visor. "Optimus, you and Lelouch certainly don't disappoint," Megatron sneered. "I shall ready the Armada, Lord Megatron," Starscream proposed. "I'll be joining them as well," Skybite added. "That will not be necessary," the Decepticon leader told them. "I control this very vessel. What better way to conduct a test run, than by destroying my greatest enemies right here and now? Alright, here's the plan." Zero contacted everyone. The Ikaruga and Granberry will fire all its heavy artillery on the Nemesis, while the onboard Autobots keep enemy units from getting too close. All airborne Nightmares and aerial bots will converge on the Nemesis and attack from all sides, keeping its weapons primed on us and allow the airships to get in close so the Autobots can attack. Suzaku, you have the Spark Extractor. Go underneath its hull and place it where the Decepticons can't immediately locate it. Understood. Suzaku confirmed as Lelouch got confirmation from all other units. TAI, you have complete control over the ARC's groundbridge system. Zero told the AI. Worst comes to worse, prepare multiple groundbridge extractions for immediate evac. Acknowledged. Ready and waiting. TAI contacted back. Go attack now, Lelouch ordered. Immediately, the Ikaruga and Granberry fired a volley of missiles and hadron blasts at the Nemesis. However, a dark purple energy barrier appeared to surround its outer hull to shield itself the blasts before the Nemesis returned fire with multiple rapid-fire energon blasts, forcing the smaller units to scatter and divert its fire away from the airships. "Aerial bots and Zero Guard with me, we attack the front," Zero ordered. "Black Dragon and Crimson Knights take the starboard side. Black Wyverns, Wreckers, and Elite Guard take port. Keep their attention away from the airships and Lancelot." The Shinkiro took off with the Gurren, Pegasus, Byakuin, Agravain, up front with Windblade, Jetfire, Silverbolt, and Air Raid alongside them. The starboard side of the Nemesis was flanked by Toto's Zangetsu and Maribel's Lancelot Trial, leading the Black Dragon and Crimson Knights. Simultaneously, Akito's Alexander Liberté, having a float system attached to it, led the Black Wyverns with Ray's Raiden and Cornelia's custom Vincent taking command to lead the Black Wyverns, Wreckers, and Elite Guard Nightmares to attack the Nemesis port side. Explosions lit up around the Decepticon vessel as the Ikaruga and Granberry were already closing in, maneuvering themselves above the Nemesis. But, even as the aerial units kept most of the Nemesis weapons aimed at them, both vessels were sustaining heavy fire. "This is as close as we can get," Euphemia said from the bridge of the Ikaruga. "Optimus, you and the Autobots need to move in, now." Understood. Autobots, roll out. Optimus commanded as all the Autobots on both vessels transformed into their respective vehicle modes and drove at high speeds to close the distance and fall toward the Decepticon warship. All but Grimlock transformed as he simply ran and jumped to land on the ship, before pulling out his shield to block the energon fire as several turrets appeared to fire on the invading Autobots, who returned fire themselves. Looks like we got these guys pretty distracted. Smokescreen said as he shot off one turret. Suzaku, what is your current location? Optimus asked. Meanwhile, the Lancelot was underneath the Nemesis hull as the White Nightmare pulled out the spark extractor. I'm directly beneath the Nemesis, and ready to deploy the spark extractor. Suzaku replied. I'll let you know when it's attached, so you can prepare for an evac. However, just before he could make a move to attach it, a satellite-like device appeared from the hull of the ship on the right side of the Lancelot, firing an electrical beam at it, causing the Lancelot to freeze up and fall with the spark extractor. What the? Suzaku exclaimed as all his systems appeared to be shut down. The Lancelot's frozen. I can't control it. Fortunately, the Lancelot didn't fall very far as a ground bridge portal opened beneath it, allowing the disabled Nightmare and its pilot to be rescued, but the spark extractor continued to fall into the ocean below. The central screen on the Nemesis bridge had shown the crew what had transpired outside with the Lancelot, and they were quite surprised themselves. I wasn't aware the Nemesis was equipped with stasis weapons. Steeljaw commented. Megatron also had a concerned expression himself, as he was also unaware of this development. Suzaku. Zero tried to contact him but got no response. TAI, what happened? The Lancelot was rescued successfully, but it seems to be in some form of stasis lock. TAI reported back. But it wasn't just the Lancelot. Already multiple similar weapons appeared all over the Nemesis hull and began to zap and freeze any and all Nightmares and Autobots that were unfortunate enough to get caught in the attacks. On the hull, the largest bots such as Bulkhead, Ironhide, and Grindcore were already frozen by the stasis beams. Grimlock threw up his shield and went up front to protect the remaining Autobots from getting frozen as a ground bridge portal opened behind them. Get everyone out. I'll hold them back. The Dinobot exclaimed to Optimus, but with several beams pressing against his shield, they broke through and even he was rendered in stasis. It wasn't long before all the remaining Autobots, including Bumblebee, RC, Alita, Ultra Magnus, and even Optimus himself were locked in stasis. Fortunately, a large ground bridge portal was opened underneath all of the downed Autobots, and they were transported to safety. All around the ship, more and more Nightmares were put in stasis lock and sent falling. But thanks to TAI's precise timing, all downed Nightmares were successfully transported back to base via ground bridge, so no casualties were confirmed. However, they had already lost a great deal of their numbers. Even Maribel and most of her Crimson Knights were defeated, along with most of the aerial bots that were shot out of the sky by the stasis beams. How? All so quickly, it's all fallen apart. Zero. We've lost more than 70% of our forces. We have to retreat now. Toto contacted him, but quickly lost contact, indicating that his Nightmare had just been neutralized. Realizing they had no choice, Lelouch made the call. All units, retreat. Abort the mission. Yuffie, Thompson, pull the Ikaruga and Granberry back. I'm going for the spark extractor. Understood. Toto contacted. Be careful. Yuffie pleaded. The Shinkiro had transformed into its shuttle mode and flew straight down to the ocean. Give Zero some cover. Colin ordered as the Gurren, Raiden, Byakuin, and Pegasus were among those left, with probably half a dozen Nightmares at most, including Tamaki and Cornelia. No Colin, you guard the airships. Make sure they don't get shot down before extraction. I'll be fine, Lelouch called back. But, that's an order, he exclaimed. He's right. Jetfire, the last remaining Aerialbot responded. Pull back and cover the carriers. Now. Colin grimaced, but also understood the priority. Fine. Pull back and cover the Ikaruga and Granberry. The remaining units were already in defensive positions surrounding the two flying aircraft carriers as they attempted to pull away as fast as they could. Meanwhile, the Shinkiro's shuttle mode had avoided most of the stasis beams as Lelouch piloted it underwater, zoning in on the beacon placed on the spark extractor beforehand, should it have been lost. However, despite being underwater, the Nemesis continued to fire stasis beams at him, though it seemed to have difficulty locking onto his position. Soon, Lelouch had a lock on the Decepticon weapon of mass destruction that sat on the ocean floor. Come on, but just before the Shinkiro could transform and grab it, the Nightmare was struck by a stasis beam, freezing and locking all its systems as it crashed and skidded on the ground just before the spark extractor. Damn it! Zero cursed. The Ikaruga and Granberry had sustained heavy damage from the Nemesis as it concentrated all its energon blasts on them, now that most of the Autobot and Black Knight forces had been dealt with, as what few units remained guarding the floating carriers, firing all long-ranged energy weapons to intercept what they could and shield the ships from any more damage. TAI, bridge the ships out now. Then go for Lelouch. Colin's communication was cut off as the Gurren was zapped by a stasis beam, causing it to collapse and land on the roof of the Granberry. Colin. Rai exclaimed just as the Raiden was also zapped, causing it to fall on the Ikaruga. TAI, we have enough distance. Get us out of here now. Claus exclaimed from the bridge of the Ikaruga. Wordlessly, another massive ground bridge portal opened to allow the damaged Granberry and Ikaruga to fly backwards inside, with all the downed nightmares on both their hulls. And just like that, the entire assault had failed. Though no casualties were reported, it couldn't have been a bigger disaster for the heroes. Back on the ocean floor, Lelouch had plugged several cables from his Zero suit into the Shinkiro's emergency power system, providing the Shinkiro with energy. Though it was not enough to get the Shinkiro fully operational, he was able to get the main screen online to see what was happening outside, and that the Nemesis was hovering directly above his position. TAI, report. What is the status of our forces? All units were returned to Horai Island successfully. No casualties. Good, Lelouch said. Now prepare to extract me along with the cargo in front me. Lord Megatron, the enemy has retreated. A Viacon reported from a side console. All Autobots and Black Knights are gone, all except one unit directly below us. On screen, Megatron ordered. The central window then showed the visual of the downed Shinkiro that laid on the ocean floor, with a certain weapon in close proximity. The spark extractor. Guide us closer so that I can collect what belongs to me. Meanwhile, within one of the Nemesis computer rooms, a set of coordinates had been decoded from the Yakin database. It didn't take long for the ship's systems to get a lock on the coordinates and plot a course to that location. Lelouch looked in confusion as he saw the visual of the Nemesis flying away from the area. What in? He didn't have much time to dwell on it however as a ground bridge portal opened below him to deliver Shinkiro and the spark extractor back to base. What? Megatron exclaimed as he saw that his vessel was flying away from his intended target. Where are you going? I said, closer. Lord Megatron, the target is already gone. The same Viacon reported. It seems the ship is navigating itself. This warship has an autopilot. Steeljaw asked. Not that I am aware of. Starscream replied. Override and switch to manual control at once. Megatron ordered the Viacon, but the entire vessel shook as it continued along its own intended path, flying away from the battlefield despite the crew's attempts to gain control. The systems are bypassing manual control. The Viacon was literally shocked by the very console he worked on and fell backwards. Knockout quickly ran to attend to the Viacon. He's in stasis, just like all the bots and their human pets outside. How is this possible? Steeljaw asked. Skybite then gave a gasp as he seemed to have realized a possible answer. Lord Megatron, Dark Energon has the power to bring non-living machines to life and even revive the dead, correct? Yes. What of it? Megatron growled. Then, perhaps it is possible that when you infused the Nemesis with Dark Energon, it has, somehow reawakened Trypticon. Skybite exclaimed, catching all the present Decepticons by surprise. Well, Trypticon was brought to life in the first place by Dark Energon, so it's not necessarily an impossibility. Starscream shuddered at the very thought, but even he couldn't deny the logic behind Skybite's theory. That is impossible, Megatron stated. Trypticon is no more. Trace the problem to its source and fix it. Do not tamper with my systems. A new, deep, and animalistic voice echoed throughout the entire warship, causing the Decepticons to look upward in surprise. This will be your only warning. It cannot be, Trypticon. Starscream stuttered. The same Titan-class Decepticon that fought Prime near the end of the war on Cybertron. Steeljaw questioned. I had thought he was destroyed. I cannot be so easily destroyed. The voice of Trypticon stated. I was subdued, detained, taken apart by Autobot hands. Only to have my body forcibly transformed into this vessel, unable to retain my former glory, at the hands of my former master. Trypticon, Megatron growled. I have my own mission now, and any Cybertronian that interferes, be they Autobot or Decepticon, will be neutralized. Trypticon warned. Kept in a state of perpetual stasis, much like that of which you sentenced me to, Megatron. To say Megatron was seething was an understatement. You dare. I gave you life. I made you into a weapon of ultimate destruction, and you dare to threaten me. Soundwave then noticed one of the consoles beeping and pointing toward it, directing all their attention as Knockout saw the Yakin database in the process of being decoded, with a second set already revealed. He also seems to be doing a better job of decoding the Project Yakin database than we were. He's already deciphered 2 sets of coordinates. The Decepticon scientist revealed. Soundwave's visor then lit to show the course the Nemesis was taking. And it looks like Trypticon is heading toward the first set. Steeljaw said. As I desire, you see. Megatron boasted to his crew. Even if Trypticon has regained sentience, he is nothing more than an extension of my very will. Your will is nothing, Trypticon bellowed. The relics of Yakin will belong to me. I am Lord Megatron, your creator, your master. I command you to cease operations. Just as you claim that I have failed you as your soldier, you have failed me as a leader. You are no longer in command. Though I can no longer assume my true form, I am far from powerless. Trypticon then appeared to use the link between him and Megatron to his own advantage to send an attack directly into Megatron's mind, causing him to yell in pain as he was brought to his knees, holding the sides of his head. Master. Starscream tried to run and assist him, only to get beaten back by the swipe of Megatron's arm as he pulled himself up. Regain control of this vessel, by any means necessary. Megatron ordered in deathly silent tone. Soundwave immediately got to work, attaching his tentacles to the nearest console. However, the second they made contact, Trypticon had sent an electric pulse through the tentacles and straight to Soundwave to not only electrocute him, but even put him in stasis. Knockout, Starscream, Steeljaw, Skybite, and even Megatron were taken aback by this. One of the most dangerous and reliable Decepticon in their ranks was neutralized in less than a second. Despite this shock, Megatron was not about to let this insubordination go unpunished. All hands, cut power to the mainframe. And disconnect data relays now. Steeljaw ran through the halls of the Nemesis with a squadron of Viacons right behind him. However, they would not get very far as energy bars were generated from the walls, crisscrossing each other and moved forward. Just as Steeljaw and his team rounded the corner, they were struck by the energy grid, electrocuting and placing each of them into stasis. Skybite flew in his shark mode through the halls, trying to get to the mainframe and disable the ship, but just as with Steeljaw, he was caught in crisscross of stasis beams from the walls, resulting in his body being forced into stasis lock as well. It was happening all over the Nemesis, even with any Decepticon that didn't try at stopping Trypticon. He had given them his warning out of respect to being on the same side, but they chose to ignore him. This was the price they had to pay for their betrayal. He honestly could have terminated each and every one of them he wanted to, but that was too good for them. They deserved the same fate as he, being kept in a state that was alive and yet so helpless, unable to do anything as the world around them turned against their will. Trypticon would acquire all of the Yakin relics that were hidden on this planet, and nothing would stand in his way. The hatch to Cornelia's custom Vincent was manually opened as she pulled herself up. Cornelia. She looked to see her younger sister running towards her as she got out and wrapped her arms around her, which Cornelia didn't hesitate to return. Are you okay? I'm fine, Yuffie, she assured. Both sisters were among many other Black Knights in a nightmare hangar that were having assistance being pulled out of their disabled nightmares. Where is everyone else? Lelouch is on the Ark, talking with Ratchet and several others about what happened. Yuffie said, looking down slightly. They even took down Optimus, Cornelia, all the Autobots there, it's like they're frozen. Are they going to be okay? Cornelia wanted to say yes, but she couldn't find it within herself to lie. I don't know Yuffie, I hope so. Lelouch was on the bridge of the Ark along with Sarah, Colin, Suzaku, Rai, Ogi, Toto, Tamaki, Lloyd, Rakshata, and Nunnally as Ratchet was communicating with the rest of the research division at a separate location. They're all alive, Perceptor reported, but I've never encountered this form of stasis lock. It is more advanced than even stasis pods used for space travel. Fixit added. I would imagine so if it was capable of neutralizing even Grimlock. Ratchet said. Do whatever you can to try and get them back on their feet and let me know the second anything happens. Understood. We'll be in touch, Cecile said before hanging up. I hope they'll be okay, Nunnally said worriedly, causing Lelouch to put his hand on his younger sister's shoulder in comfort. Of course, it wasn't just our Autobot friends, Lloyd said. Whatever the cons hit us with was enough to neutralize even the more advanced nightmares. Its effect seemed rather similar to the immobilizer, but also different. Maybe even stronger, Rakshata added. This is quite perplexing. Tamaki roared as he kicked his foot against the nearest wall. Damn it all. That whole thing was a disaster. While I wouldn't exactly count it as a victory, the fact that there were no casualties is certainly a relief. Sarah pointed out. She's right. We live to fight another day. Ogie added. It won't mean much if we don't figure out a way to counter this new offensive the Decepticons have at their disposal. Toto said. Tai suddenly appeared in her hologram form. I have a lock on the Nemesis. It is currently crossing the Chinese Federation airspace, maintaining a steady altitude of 35.69 kilometers. What? Lelouch questioned, looking in surprise. I said the Nemesis has entered Chinese Federation airspace, Tai repeated. No, I mean you're able to track it, Lelouch asked. Yes, Tai responded in confusion. That's odd. Why would we be able to track it? Why hasn't Megatron cloaked his ship? Lelouch asked. Big brother. Nunnally looked toward him. No, he's right, Colin said. Even with most of our forces taken down, we could still have the Ark fly there and overpower the Nemesis. Megatron knows we have the firepower to do that. Maybe he's just cocky, Tamaki assumed. Megatron is known to be arrogant, but he's not stupid, Suzaku said, speaking from experience. Could the Nemesis' new stasis weapon also affect the Ark? This vessel is far too large to be entirely affected, Tai answered. It could certainly short out a number of systems, but the weapons the Ark has at its disposal could deliver irreparable damage to the Nemesis faster than its stasis weapons. And why just use stasis weapons? Rai added. Why not just blast us out of the sky? Heck, we didn't even see any Seekers or flying cons there. It was just the Nemesis. Yeah, I think I get where you're all going. None of this makes any sense at all. Ogie realized. They had multiple opportunities to inflict casualties, but they didn't. Sarah added. Tai was ordered to prepare multiple ground bridge extractions if things went wrong. Toto commented. Though he did seem to agree with most of them, he was also stating other possibilities as well. And I believe I have executed that directive quite nicely, Tai said, sounding rather proud of herself. Still doesn't explain why they left behind the spark extractor, Lelouch commented. There is no way Megatron would just leave it. The Lancelot was among the first to be neutralized before I had a chance to deploy the weapon, Suzaku added. If I was discovered, you'd think Megatron wouldn't hesitate to retrieve his prize himself. True, Lloyd agreed. If I were an evil alien warmonger, I'd certainly love to get my hands on a weapon of mass destruction. You'd want to get your hands such a thing right now, the sociopath that you are, Rakshata said to her fellow scientist. Not that I'm much better. But I do agree this is most strange. An idea then came to Nunnally. Tai, you said you knew where the Nemesis was, right? Does that mean we can contact them? Yes, I believe so, Tai confirmed. Yeep yeep, are you suggesting that we just call Megatron and ask him what's happening up there? Ratchet questioned, as if it was the most ridiculous idea ever conceived. Yeah, hello, King Khan, you there? That pizza you ordered is gonna be delayed. And hey, while we're talking, why didn't you go out of your way to wipe us out when we were totally helpless? Can you call back when you get this? Thanks, bye. Tamaki put on the impression he was leaving a voicemail. Your sarcasm isn't helping, Sarah told him, sounding very annoyed. However, Lelouch, Colin, and everyone else looked toward each other, almost as if they were coming to the same conclusion together. Perhaps reaching out was the best idea, if only to get a better grasp on the situation. Back on the Nemesis, Knockout had arrived at one of the computer rooms to see Triptychon's progress with the Yakin database, seeing that now 3 locations have been successfully revealed. Lord Megatron, Triptychon appears to have decoded a 3rd set of coordinates. Perhaps we should permit him to continue. Knockout was cut off by a stasis beam shot at him from behind, freezing him instantly. I do not require permission. Starscream flew through the halls of the vessel in his jet mode, using his speed and maneuverability to easily avoid all the stasis beams that were shot at him from the walls around him. Ha! You foolish monstrosity. You cannot match my speed. Starscream boasted as he flew toward the nearest exit. Once I have escaped this flying prison, I shall rally all our forces to bring down this cursed vessel. However, right as he was about to pass through the exit gate, it opened up to reveal a crisscrossing grid of stasis beams, which Starscream was unable to avoid as he flew right into it with a scream, causing his now frozen jet mode to skid across the upper deck of the vessel, the open sky literally above him, but now unable to reach it. None shall escape. Megatron ran past all his frozen minions, bashing away several that blocked his path as he made his way to the corrupted power core. He grabbed the lever and prepared to reverse the infusion of dark energon. This mutiny ends now. But, he too was struck from behind by a stasis beam, forcing the Decepticon leader into stasis lock. And with that, all Decepticon personnel on board the Nemesis had been neutralized, unable to move or contact for reinforcements. Trypticon was free to do as he saw fit. Autobot Outpost Omega-1 to Decepticon warship. Ratchet attempted to hail the Nemesis. Megatron, please respond. And how do we know this won't backfire in the most horrific way possible? Tamaki questioned skeptically. Like, won't the cons be able to backtrace this or something and learn where we are? They can't. TAI said. I'm hiding our signal across several different communication frequencies that they would have to shift through to even begin tracing the signal back to us. Great work, TAI. Nunnally beamed. Thank you, Nunnally. The artificial intelligence then smirked towards Lelouch. See, she's nice and appreciative. I can be too. Lelouch's eyes narrowed slightly. Well, obviously not when you're scowling like that. TAI snarked. Ouch. Lloyd snickered as even Rakshata smirked. Not the time. Lelouch pinched the bridge of his nose in annoyance. I repeat, Megatron respond. Ratchet tried again upon receiving no response. However, after a few seconds of everyone waiting anxiously, there was a response, but it wasn't from the Decepticon leader. Megatron has been relieved of his command. Who is this? Ratchet questioned. Who is this? Have you taken control of the Decepticon vessel? Ratchet questioned again. I am the vessel. While all the humans looked confused, Ratchet's optics widened in horror. Trypticon. Tripti what? Colin wondered. Yes, I have returned. Any Cybertronian that interferes in my mission will be neutralized. The screens on the Ark revealed images of all the Decepticons on board the Nemesis, all forcibly locked in stasis, much to everyone's surprise. Just like with the bots, Rai muttered. What mission are you talking about? Ratchet questioned. The decoding of the Yakin database, and the acquisition of the relics hidden on this planet. For what purpose? Ratchet questioned further, but he would not get a response as the communication line was cut off, ending the discussion. That's it. Communications are down. TAI reported. Do we still have a lock on its location? Lelouch asked. Yes. TAI confirmed. Ratchet, what was that? Suzaku asked the Autobot medic. You looked as if you'd seen a ghost. Yeah, what's a Trypticon? Colin also asked. Not. What? Who? Ratchet revealed, catching everyone's attention. Alright, who is Trypticon then? Lloyd asked. I'm assuming it's the name of a Decepticon you likely thought deceased. Rakshata assumed. It's not anything that simple. Ratchet said with a sigh. It was best to explain it to all of them. TAI, pull up all of our files on Trypticon. It should be within TELETRAN1's memory banks. I'm on it. TAI disappeared for a moment. Trypticon is a Decepticon, but he is nothing like anyone you've faced before. He's not even a natural-born Cybertronian. Ratchet began to explain. During the war for Cybertron, both Autobot and Decepticons were locked in a near-indefinite stalemate, with neither side gaining an advantage over the other. But that changed when Megatron was able to find and control Dark Energon. Toto said. Yeah, we already know the whole story. Tamaki waved off. Not the entire story. Ratchet countered before continuing. Before joining Megatron, Starscream and his Seeker Armada, Jetfire included, worked as an independent faction aboard a space station that was dedicated to studying and better understanding Dark Energon. Its existence was to be kept a secret shared only with our leader at the time, Sentinel Zeta Prime, and a handful of other Autobots. However, Megatron was able to learn of not only Dark Energon's existence, but where it was kept. He launched a full-scale assault on the station, and he was able to find and control the dark substance. After that, Starscream and most of his surviving Seekers had defected to the Decepticons and helped Megatron manufacture all the Dark Energon he would need, and among the first things he did with it was fuse the station itself with Dark Energon and the sparks of those seized and maimed during his siege. This brought the entire station to life as a new being, and that being's name was Trypticon. Before anyone could respond, TAI reappeared before them. I have all the files on Trypticon. Displaying them now. Several holographic screens appeared around the group of humans, showing moving images of a giant robotic monstrosity as it roared, fired lasers from its mouth and shoulders, laying waste to several Autobot forces and even entire cities, as well as its battle with Optimus Prime and some of his best warriors. Lelouch, Colin, Suzaku, Rai, Ogi, even the normally stoic Toto and Sarah looked in shock and even fear at the footage of the massive and destructive monster that proudly bore the Decepticon insignia on its chest. Nunnally even yelped as she hid closer to her brother, who absent-mindedly wrapped his arm around her. "Oh my," Lloyd said in a tone that wasn't his usual carefree or intrigued attitude, but rather one of fear. "Yes, that is, I don't have the words." Even Rakshata looked more than a little nervous. "What the hell is that?" Tamaki practically screamed. "That thing looks like freaking Mecha Godzilla." "Yes, truly an abomination," Ratchet said in a grave tone. "Trypticon had caused more casualties to our ranks than any other Decepticon. He even shot down Autobot refugees that attempted to flee our planet when its core began to shut down. But, you were able to stop it," Rice said, still not over his apparent shock. "Yes, Optimus and several other Autobots were able to defeat Trypticon," Ratchet explained, after which his body was taken apart to be studied. But around the time of the Exodus, Megatron had led an assault on the city where Trypticon was being contained. He and Soundwave were somehow able to transform Trypticon's entire body into the Decepticon warship that you know as the Nemesis. "You're saying, that ship, is alive?" Colin exclaimed. "Well, yes and no," Ratchet continued. "During the initial battle, Trypticon's T-Cog was destroyed, which prevented him from transforming any further. As we took his body apart, we put him into stasis. But based on what we could see from a distance, Megaron and Soundwave forcibly transformed what was left of Trypticon's form into the warship, the process of which would be irreversible. But since Megatron recently used Dark Energon to repair the Nemesis, and Trypticon came to life through the same substance, Sarah seemed to come to the same conclusion Ratchet did. More than likely, the blood of Unicron was able to help Trypticon regain sentience," the Autobot medic said. "And given what he did to the Decepticons inside, I'm guessing he's not happy about being forced to turn into a ship," Ogi said. "What are the odds Trypticon is able to transform again?" Toto asked Ratchet. "Very little. Despite Dark Energon's unpredictable nature, it is highly unlikely an entirely new T-Cog could be regenerated for him. You can't create something out of nothing," Ratchet explained. "Good, because the last thing we need is a kaiju-sized Decepticon," Colin said with relief. "But perhaps this can work to our advantage," Lelouch said, getting everyone's attention. "Oh, does the mastermind known as Zero have yet another master plan up his sleeve?" Rakshata asked with a grin. "Yes, I do," Lelouch said. "Even if he can't transform, we obviously can't let Trypticon roam free. Given we have access to his coordinates, we can use the ground bridge to board the ship, download the Yakin database and stop this abomination from within. And since all the Decepticons, and even probably Megatron, are locked in stasis, they can't do anything to stop us." Suzaku followed Lelouch's train of logic. "Ooh, now that is clever and devious. I like it," Lloyd grinned. "Ah yeah, let's load up on some nightmares and blow Trip T Freak up from the inside out." Tamaki pumped his fist. "Do you ever think before you talk, Tamaki?" Sarah told him. "What was that?" He growled at the immortal. "Chera's right, we can't use nightmares here. That should be a given considering what happened to our own forces," Lelouch said. You think it was Trypticon that froze all the Autobots in our nightmares? Ogi asked. I'm sure of it, Lelouch confirmed, but it only worked for Cybertronians and machines. Nunnally pointed out. The people inside were just fine. Even Trypticon himself said that any Cybertronian who tries to stop him will be neutralized. Exactly. He's never encountered humans before, so he probably mistook the nightmares for other Cybertronians. He may very well be blind to humans. Lelouch said. If that's the case, then a small elite team that specializes in infiltration is probably suited for this task. Toto assumed. Agreed. Lelouch had already thought of the team needed. I will go on board the Nemesis along with Colin, Suzaku, Rai, Toto, Shink, Akito, and Sayoko. I'll be coming too. Sarah stepped forward. I wouldn't want anything happening to my contractor, would I? She asked with a friendly yet sincere smirk, which Lelouch returned. I want to come, but I think I might just get in the way. Nunnally said. I wouldn't say that Nunnally. But, we have to be quick, and I don't think you can keep up. Please don't be offended, Lelouch tried to assure his sister as best he could. It's okay, I understand. Just promise you'll come back, all of you. Nunnally said with an understanding yet pleading expression. Don't worry, little sis. Rai ruffled her hair. We'll be back in time for supper. Are you sure you wouldn't mind some scientific hands for this mission? Lloyd said in an expression that seemed to mix eagerness and subtle begging to come along, with Rakshata being more discreet about it. Lloyd, I think you and Rakshata had better stay here to try and help get the Autobots out of stasis. Suzaku told him. I'll stay behind and man the ground bridge in case you need a swift exit. Ratchet said. Please, allow me to come with you. Tai requested. Wait, Ti, can you even leave the Ark? Ogi asked. Yeah, aren't you hardwired in or something? Tamaki also asked. I can be placed within a portable storage device. Tai explained. Once I am, plug me into the Nemesis and I can not only help download the Yakin database, I may even try to slow down Trypticon's progress and hide your presence from him. But what happens if he finds you? Colin asked. You let me worry about that. Tai said. I'm the daughter of Teletran-1, the Ark's original artificial intelligence, after all. I have a few of my own tricks up my non-existent sleeves. Lelouch knew there were risks involved, but if Tai is able to hide the presence of his team from Trypticon, the greater chance at success they'll have. Alright, let's move. A ground bridge portal was open in one of the hallways of the Nemesis, littered with the frozen bodies of the many Decepticons forcibly put into stasis by Trypticon. Lelouch was the first to step out, clad in his Zero armor and holding a Cybertronian drive in his arm that contained the Autobot artificial intelligence Tai. Following him out of the portal were Colin, Sarah, Sayoko, Suzaku, Rai, Toto, Akito, and Shink before it closed. Ratchet, we're in. Zero reported over the comms. Good. Their data core should be accessible from any console. Ratchet instructed as the group proceeded quickly through the hallways, moving around and past all the frozen Viacons. All these Decepticons, helpless, Akito commented. If we had our nightmares, it would certainly be easy to do some to their numbers. We can likely do more damage to them in the long run by obtaining the Yakin relics, so let's stay focused on the mission. Toto told him. Are these relics really that significant? Shink asked. They were jettisoned from Cybertron and sent across the galaxy to this planet just to keep them from falling into the wrong hands. That enough should point out how dangerous they are. Sarah replied. And if having something like the spark extractor wasn't enough, there was also a magic hammer that can pound any weapon you imagine into existence. Colin added. So, yeah, they're definitely worth the hype. All the more prudent we locate them before the Decepticons do. Suzaku also said. As they continued to move, Sayoko glanced around the corner of the adjacent path they were crossing and found Knockout, frozen in stasis, leaning in front of a console. I think we've found our target, she said, getting their attention. Despite knowing this Decepticon was likely in stasis, the nightmare-less humans approached him cautiously, their hands trained on whatever sword or gun they had with them as Rai moved closer to Knockout's right leg and banged his hand against it and got no reaction from the red Decepticon. Looks like the doctor's not in the house. Rai commented with a smirk. Seems like Trypticon's already decoded 4 sets of Yakin coordinates. Suzaku observed, seeing the data on the computer, only for a fifth set to appear as well. Make that 5. We need to work fast. Zero said as he used his armor to jet himself up onto the console, quickly locating the port and plugging in the drive. "Tai, do you read me?" The hologram of the human girl appeared within cyberspace, inside the Nemesis' own data core. She walked on something that served as the floor, looking around to see streams of Cybertronian data flowing in all directions. "I'm here," she communicated with Zero. "So much data here, everything the Decepticons have in their own personal cyberspace is funneled through the Nemesis data core, which is then broadcasted to any location under their control. In a sense, this warship may be the central hub for their entire network." "Can you locate the Yakin database?" Zero asked. "Already on it." Tai reached her hands forward, pressing them on various data streams as several files were pulled up and began to orbit around her. She waved her hands to spin the files around as she shifted through each one, before locating the file that was already opened and being accessed by the Nemesis systems. "I found it." She tapped the file, exposing the entire Yakin database. She then waved her hands to erect the program, in the form of a red data stream, she developed specifically for this mission and placed it into the file. "It's all set." Tai began. "Extracting the entire database may attract Trypticon's attention, so I'm instead going for a more discreet approach. Rather than download the original file, I am copying it and downloading that into the data drive. The 5 coordinates that Trypticon already decoded have already been copied and extracted, and this program will work to automatically copy and download any other set of coordinates that he is able to decode." "Do you know how many more coordinates are left?" Zero asked again. "It appears there are 4 more sets that have left to be decoded. And the last one seems to be the most heavily encrypted." Tai answered. "See what you can do to try and slow Trypticon down, but don't be too reckless. I don't want to take any chances if he's anything like what we've heard." Zero instructed. "Understood. I'll let you know if I find anything." Tai replied as she began to search through all the remaining files. Akito looked at one of the other monitors, and while he was unable to read the Cybertronian code on it, he did notice the image of the planet he called home, as well as recognize the location that the systems were locked onto, realizing the sentient craft was heading to that spot. "It looks as though Trypticon is going to Paris," the ghost of Hannibal observed, getting everyone else's attention. Suzaku saw that the symbols on the navigation system matched that of the first set of coordinates. "Because that's where the first set of coordinates are located. Why would there be a Cybertronian weapon in the capital of Europia?" Shink asked. "The Yakin relics landed on Earth eons ago, Shink. Long before the city was built on top it," Ratchet explained. "Which means Trypticon will probably have to tear the city all down to get this particular relic." Toto said grimly, clenching his fists with anger and worry as everyone else had surprised expressions. "And likely do the same for the others. This warship is armed with enough firepower to match the military force of the entire old Britannian Empire." Rai stated. "Even if Trypticon can't transform, he's still a flying catastrophe. Why does Trypticon even need these relics?" Colin questioned. "It's not like he can use them. Can't he?" she asked nervously. "This is only a guess," Zero began. "But based on what we've seen from the previous relics, Trypticon is likely looking for them because he is hoping that at least one of them will have the power to restore himself completely, returning his ability to transform." "Can these relics even do that? Did they have such power?" Sayoko asked, hoping the answer would be no. "The Forge of Solus Prime alone could theoretically construct a new T-Cog for Trypticon," Ratchet replied. "But it can only be wielded by a Prime, and Trypticon is certainly not. Still won't stop him from trying," Akito said. "And likely killing millions of people in the process. Worst case scenario, Trypticon does regain the ability to transform, no force on this planet could stop him." Sarah pointed out. "He'd end all life on Earth. Tai, you have to find a way to disconnect Trypticon." Zero contacted her immediately. "Don't worry about the rest of the Yakin database, stopping this sentient apocalypse is now your primary objective. I'll still leave the program running, but I'll see what I can do." Tai got to work as she tried to find whatever means she can use to stop Trypticon, or at least slow him down. "If I disconnect his navigation, it may render him blind. Or if I shut down the engines, but he'll know for certain I'm here if I." Her inner musings were interrupted by an alarm that sounded through the data core as multiple dark red symbols emerged all over the cyberspace. Though the coding was in Cybertronian, TAI could read it as each alert read, "Unauthorized system access detected. Breach in cybersecurity." Her holographic face went pale. "Oh no. System access detected. Interference will not be tolerated." Triptychon's echoing voice immediately put all the present Black Knights on guard as Zero's armor's blades sprang to life with Akito, Todo, and Shink drawing their own respective swords, and Sayoko a pair of kunai, while Colin, Sarah, and Rai pulled out their guns. Up there, Sayoko pointed to the ceiling where an orb-like camera appeared and scanned the area. "Reveal yourself," Triptychon demanded, but looking through the eyes of the camera, he was unable to find any Cybertronian life nearby that wasn't already in stasis. "I don't think he sees us," Rai said. "Yet," Ratchet quickly put in, "Triptychon must not be scanning for carbon-based lifeforms. But once he widens his search parameters, we're screwed." Colin finished. "I'm bridging you back," Ratchet told them. "Negative," Zero replied firmly. "There are millions of lives at stake in Paris, and we are the only ones in a position to do anything about it." "I agree," Akito stated. "We've learned already that an external attack on this monster is useless, so we have to strike at it from the inside." "You're all out of your element with this," Ratchet stated. "These readings, the ship's rapid recovery, Triptychon's very awakening, it all points to the indisputable fact that Megatron used Dark Energon to repair his vessel. But maybe that's how we can stop it," Suzaku said. "All Cybertronian ships, be they made by Autobot or Decepticon hands, follow the same basic principle. They each have an Energon power core that fuels the ship, and the Nemesis should be no different. And if that's the case, we can remove the Dark Energon." "We can." Rai looked in surprise. "How do you know this, Suzaku?" Todo asked. The young warrior shrugged with a slight smile. "When you're around someone like Lloyd Asplund for so long, and he's obsessed with Cybertronian technology, you learn a few things no matter how much you try to tune him out." "But even so, how can we remove this Dark Energon?" Shink asked. "Because each power core has a reverse mechanism that can remove any corroded or corrupted Energon from the infuser so it doesn't damage the entire system," Suzaku explained. "And since Dark Energon follows the same sort of principles as its natural counterpart, it too can be purged from the system." Sarah followed along. "Ratchet, could that work?" Zero asked, just to make sure. "Could the Dark Energon be purged from the ship's power core?" "Theoretically, and it may be our only option at this point," Ratchet responded. "You'll need to follow main overhead conduits. They'll lead you straight to the power core." "You all heard the doc, let's move," Colin stated as the team of 9 ran as fast as they could, following the conduits built into the ceiling to get to the power core as fast as they could. "TAI, we think we found a way to stop Triptychon. Is there a way you can reverse the Energon infuser from your end?" Zero asked. "Maybe, but there are several firewalls around that particular program here," TAI explained as she saw all the data surrounding the files on the power core. "It was probably built beforehand to defend against a cyber attack. But I can't break through them without alerting Triptychon too." "Foreign program detected." She was startled as she heard Triptychon's voice through the data core itself. "Beginning search and purge protocol. Triptychon knows I'm here," TAI quickly and worriedly told Lelouch. "I can't help you anymore." "Understood. Do what you can to keep out of sight, we'll hurry as fast as we can." Zero responded before cutting off. TAI, while also leaving the copying program for the Yakin database running, immediately closed all files and stood by herself in the data core, hoping that staying silent and still could lead to Triptychon overlooking her presence from a lack of activity. But she could feel it, she could feel his dark mind scanning every inch of the data core, like a hungry predator searching for its prey. For the first time in her artificial existence, she was terrified. "Please hurry," she muttered. Zero and his team made it to the power core chamber, making their way past the various stacks of Energon crates and closer to the literal heart of Triptychon. However, once they cleared past the crates, they each gasped in shock. Even Todo and Sayoko were startled by the frozen form of Megatron himself. Even though they knew the leader of the Decepticons was in stasis and unable to do anything about them, it was still intimidating just to look at him. Even Akito and Shink, who were laying eyes on him for the first time, felt their hearts stop briefly. "So, this is the infamous Megatron," Shink observed. "In the flesh. Or whatever Cybertronians count as flesh anyway," Rai said. "Looks like he had the same idea as us," Zero said, seeing Megatron's frozen hand about to pull back on the manual lever. "Which means we're on the right track. But, are we certain that we can stop only Trypticon?" Akito asked, getting their attention. "The leader of the Decepticons is right before us, completely helpless. What's to stop us from ending him right here and now? We don't anything on us that can do any permanent damage to him," Colin said. "Believe me, Akito. Everyone here would give anything for us to finally be rid of this monster, but we just don't have the means to do it." "Colin's right," Suzaku said, turning toward the frozen Megatron with a glare, clenching his fists in anger just by looking at him. "As much as I hate to say it, Megatron still lives. For now," Zero added. But underneath his mask, his eyes burned with hatred as he knew the Decepticon leader had escaped justice for the time being once more. "It may not be today, but I swear it, no matter what it takes, we will destroy you. Let's stay focused on the current crisis," Toto advised. "How do we reverse this? The energon ejection valve can only be operated manually," Ratchet told them. "Manually," Sarah muttered. "Somehow, I knew it wouldn't be easy. Let's hurry," Zero told them. "Trypticon already noticed TAI's presence in the ship's data core, so it won't be long before he finds us." Back in the data core, TAI remained absolutely still and silent as to not arouse Trypticon, even though she could still sense him searching through the cyberspace. Even though she herself was not interacting with anything, she was still able to see the point of view from the many cameras that Trypticon was using to find the intruders. Even though he could not see any carbon-based lifeforms, yet, she was still able to see through the camera stationed in the power core chamber that Zero and his team had already made it there and were working on shutting it down. "They found it," she thought, sounding very relieved. "This will all be over soon." Suddenly, however, multiple streams of dark purple data shot up from behind her, causing TAI to turn around in shock as she saw the streams of data come together to take the shape of a massive entity that was well over 100 times greater than her own size. The shape began to take a more detailed form resembling a giant, metallic, bipedal, reptilian-like creature with massive feet, 3 clawed hands, a long tail, and a reptilian head with glowing yellow eyes, along with the purple Decepticon emblem shining on its chest. This was Trypticon's own artificial intelligence, manifesting in the cyberspace of his own alternate form. "I have found you." He set his glowing eyes on the intruder, that was TAI, opening his mouth to blast a massive beam of purple energy straight at her. Acting on instinct, TAI threw up a circular barrier around herself on defense. Though it was able to hold for a few seconds, it ultimately shattered as TAI was sent skidding across the ground. "I see now," Trypticon said as TAI tried to pull herself up. "My intruders are not Cybertronian." "No," TAI exclaimed in shock, upon realizing he had found her comrades. "I have become infested with alien parasites." This put the entire team on alert as they pulled out their weapons. "Looks like we're busted," Rai winced. Multiple ports across the power core chamber's walls and ceilings opened and produced countless tentacle-like tools that either charged electricity at the tips, or extended razor-sharp blades. They quickly shot to the group, going on the attack. "Scatter," Toto ordered as the team ran in separate directions to try and divide Trypticon's attention. Toto held his katana as he ran toward a stack of energon crates for cover as 2 tentacles shot toward him, but he was able to swerve out of the way of one while using his katana to cut down the other as he moved for cover. Shink climbed to the top of a stack of crates, drawing the attention of several tentacles, which he used his own sword to bat away before jumping down to raise his sword and cut off the end of one tentacle as he fell, which retreated back into the wall to repair itself as others moved to close in on him. Sarah pulled out a gun and ran alongside Rai, who also carried a gun in his hands, both trying to find cover as they shot the tentacles that came close towards them. Both ended up coming back to back once they saw they were surrounded. Rai opened fire first, trying to shoot down any tentacles that appeared to be coming close. However, Sarah noticed a bladed tentacle slithering its way toward him across the ground. She moved quickly to push him out of the way as the tentacle shot itself forward to pierce its blade through her chest. Sarah! Rai exclaimed as the tentacle pulled back, allowing Chera's bloodied body to fall to the ground as Rai quickly attended to her. That same tentacle was about to go for the kill on Rai as well, but Akito leapt to their aid, drawing his kodachi to slice off the head of that tentacle as Sayoko appeared behind them to throw her kunai at another tentacle, piercing its body and forcing it to retreat. "Get to safety. We'll cover you," Akito told Rai as he nodded and picked up Sarah, pulling her to a spot in between a stack of crates as Akito and Sayoko drew the attention of the other tentacles. "Sarah, you're gonna be okay," Rai said as he held the wound close. Despite knowing that it would indeed heal, it was still painful seeing someone he cared about, bleeding in his arms. Despite being in clear pain with blood coming from her mouth, Sarah couldn't help but let out a small chuckle. "Immortality hurts," she grinned, causing Rai to chuckle as well. Zero circled up with Colin and Suzaku in a three-way back-to-back-to-back formation as he used his armor's energon blades to cut down and beat back any tentacles that got too close to them, while Suzaku and Colin used their own guns to keep the ones at a distance away. "Lelouch, this won't mean a damn thing if we can't shut this wannabe kaiju down," Colin told him. "I'm pretty sure Trypticon knows what we're doing. It's why he's fighting so hard," Zero replied as he used his blades to sever the head of one electric tentacle that shot at him. "He knows we're a threat and I can't use my Geass on him since he doesn't have eyes. We're going to have to group up and try to push our way to the valve. It may be our only way," Suzaku stated. "You're right, Suzaku." Lelouch knew that was probably their best, or rather, their only option right now. "Everyone, form up. We're pushing to the core," he called out to his team. Back in cyberspace, Tai screamed as she raised another barrier in the form of a wall from the ground to try and protect herself from another blast of Trypticon's mouth beam. But even though it held against that, this barrier was easily shattered by a tail swipe from the monster that sent Tai rolling across the ground. Trypticon let loose a bellowing laugh. "A band of insects think they can defeat me. Defeat Trypticon? How pathetic. Why you don't have to do this," Tai weakly pulled herself up. "We can help you, you don't have to destroy innocent lives to become whole again. Those Autobot vermin are the reason I am in this state," Trypticon exclaimed. "They will suffer the same fate as my former Decepticon masters. And if this world is to be destroyed," an evil sneer creeped his metallic face, "I will gladly reduce it to dust. No, I will not let you do this," Tai declared as she stood firmly against him, despite his overwhelming size. "I am Tai, the daughter and successor of Teletraan-1, member of the Autobot Black Knight Alliance and protector of the weak." Her own body began to glow a bright red. "Initiate Yakan Firewall defensive procedure." Tai slammed both her hands on the ground, activating the program she made for this specific circumstance as the dark purple data serving as the floor turned a bright red and spread over the entire area, forcing Trypticon to step back as he looked in surprise to see several streams of red data flow up from the ground and take concrete shapes, similar to how he arrived here. In a matter of seconds, what appeared to be the city of Yakan itself had fully formed as Tai stood in the tallest tower at a control center to face the enormous monster that stood on the outskirts of the newly constructed data city. "If you are willing to destroy countless innocent lives, then you should also be prepared to be destroyed yourself," Tai stated as several towers produced large Fortress Maximus-grade cannons before firing multiple energon blasts at Trypticon. This proved to be an effective attack as the behemoth was forced back with a pain-inducing roar. Tai then directed a fleet of Autobot flyers, also made from the data program like the city she constructed, straight toward Trypticon to lay down a bombardment across his frame, covering him with smoke as the Fortress Maximus-grade cannons stopped firing. However, the respite lasted only a few seconds as Trypticon rushed through the smoke with a roar bashing through several of the buildings closest to him. The second they began to crumble, they converted back into data and broke apart before disappearing completely. Tai then redirected the Fortress Maximus cannons at Trypticon to halt his advance, but he was ready for this as his shoulder cannons opened fire to obliterate most of TAI's heavy artillery on his sides before he fired his beam weapon from his mouth to carve a line through the center of the Yakan program and obliterate the remainder of the cannons. "You cannot stop me, vermin." Trypticon pushed through what was left of the Yakan defensive, making his way closer to the tower where Tai was. Even as she directed another wave of Autobot flyers to his position, he waved his tail upwards to halt and obliterate them all with one swipe. She tried desperately to erect more buildings in an attempt to slow him down, but they could barely do that as he smashed and kicked his way across the artificially generated city made entirely out of data before getting toward the command tower. He then raised his right hand and brought it down to obliterate the entire tower, all while grabbing a hold of Tai and bringing her close to his glowing eyes. Abandon hope, little one. You are but a mere artificial construct, created by lesser beings. I was born from the blood of Unicron. You cannot stop me. I may not be able to stop you, but there is someone who can. Tai smirked at him. And he is quite adept at making miracles. Push forward. Go now. Zero ordered as he led the charge with Colin, Suzaku, Rai, Toto, Akito, Shink, and Sayoko all around him straight toward the power core, specifically toward the still frozen Megatron and the valve that would undo everything. Sarah remained behind in cover by several energon crates as her injuries began to heal. All she could do was hope for their success. All the tentacles bared down on the group as they made their way closer, but the gunfire from Colin, Suzaku, and Rai seemed to keep several at bay, with even Sayoko throwing out smoke bombs to try and distort Trypticon's vision. Any tentacles that got close were quickly batted away and cut down by the blades wielded by Toto, Shink, Akito, and Zero. So far, their formation appeared to be working as they continued to near the power core. But Trypticon increased his efforts even more as the tentacles moved faster and quicker. One by one, each of the Black Knights were knocked away, starting with Akito, followed by Shink, Toto, and Sayoko. Cover me. Zero ordered as he and his remaining team had already made it to Megatron's stasis form. Colin, Suzaku, and Rai turned around and fired all their guns at the wave of tentacles as Zero flew up in his armor and straight to the back of Megatron's right knee. He then put all the power he could in his feet boosters, flying and gathering enough momentum that when he slammed his armored shoulder into the back of Megatron's knee, he ended up losing control of his own momentum and crashed on the ground, allowing several tentacles to surround him, but he had already a victorious smirk on his face, knowing his objective was complete. Checkmate, Trypticon. Megatron's frozen body began to fall backwards, causing the hand that was still attached to the lever to pull back, forcing the lever to be pulled as well as Megatron's stasis form slammed onto the ground. All the tentacles suddenly stopped moving as the energon coming from the power core and spreading throughout the entire ship began to shift from its dark purple to natural blue as the dark energon began to be purged from the system. Critical power drain. No. I cannot. I am in command. I am Trypticon. The team of Black Knights began to recover as they heard Trypticon's voice losing its force, and likely the monster himself losing strength and the ability to remain awake. Meanwhile, in cyberspace, the form of Trypticon began to shrink considerably. Already he was half his original gargantuan size and shrinking even still. I will not go back to that darkness. I will not fade. As he continued to shrink and lose strength, the cyberspace and data core around him and Tai began to shift from dark purple to natural blue as Tai pulled herself from his weakened grip. As she landed on the ground, Trypticon had shrunk to the point he was of equal size and mass as her as he fell on his hands and knees. I am Trypticon. I am destruction. I am death. I am beaten. Tai told him as she delivered a punch to his face, causing his entire form to shatter into fragments of data that disappeared, leaving Tai alone in the now purged data core. She then fell to her hands and knees in exhaustion, but despite that, a victorious smile formed on her face. Mission accomplished. Outside, Zero regrouped with his team as Rai had helped Sarah on her feet. They saw the crate of dark energon being ejected from the cleansed power core, indicating Trypticon had been defeated. But any thoughts of celebration were brought to a halt as Megatron's frozen form fell back with a groan, showing he was now emerging from stasis. Run. Zero ordered, knowing they weren't out of the woods yet. Optimus was the first to awaken from stasis, shooting up from the platform he laid on in the laboratory on Horai Island, while all the other Autobots around him regained their free range of movement. They're awake. Cecile exclaimed happily, standing alongside Perceptor and Fix-It. Thank the Allspark. Fix-It cheered along with all other Black Knights in the area. Ratchet, Optimus and the others have emerged from stasis. Perceptor contacted his fellow scientist. Zero and his team appear to have been successful. Good. Let us hope they were able to retrieve what they needed. Zero and his team ran back the way they came as all the Decepticons on board the ship were also emerging from their forced stasis. Ratchet, fire up the ground bridge. We're retrieving the data now. Zero stated as they all came back to the console they placed the drive in, where Knockout still remained in his forced stasis and had appeared to not yet emerge. "Tai, are you there?" "Yes, I am." "Then get back into the data drive, we're leaving," Zero ordered. Suzaku looked towards the screen to see 8 set of coordinates had been decoded. "Looks like we got the locations for 8 relics, but there might be more." Tai said there was only one after that and it was the most heavily encrypted. Colin said. "And with Triptychon offline, there's no chance of us decoding it now, or even copying it." Toto added. "We'll worry about that later. We're leaving now," Zero stated as a ground bridge portal opened behind them. "Get back to base, I'll retrieve Tai and the data and be right behind you." "Understood." Sayoko nodded. "Just don't take too long," Rai said as they made their way into the portal. Zero then used his armor to fly up to the console and pull the drive from the port. But as he did, Knockout had emerged from stasis behind him. Zero then turned to face the smirking red Decepticon as his arm transformed into a drill. "Say, Knockout said sadistically. But Lelouch was more than ready to fight back as he held the data drive close to him with one arm and produced an energon blade in the other. "I'm here to offer a second opinion," Ratchet said from behind, delivering a punch just as Knockout turned around to receive the punch to his face, knocking him to the ground and allowing Ratchet to pick up Zero and the drive before running into the portal just as it closed behind them. Knockout tried to push himself up to see his leader stomping toward him. "Lord Megatron, You let them escape," Megatron exclaimed with a glare, only to look in shock at the monitor in front of him to see the 8 set of decoded coordinates. With vital intelligence, Ratchet plugged the data drive into the ARC's main console, allowing not only the copied coordinates to be downloaded into the ship's data core, but also allowing Tai to return home as her holographic form appeared before him as well as Lelouch, still clad in his armor but his mask opened as she kneeled in exhaustion. "I was able to copy what I could, only one set of coordinate remains uncoded, and within the Nemesis systems," she reported. "You've done more than enough, Tai," Lelouch told her. "Thanks to you, not only do we have critical information, but you were also able to help us stop a monster from taking millions of innocent lives, maybe even more. You may have just helped save the planet. The time has now come for you to rest and recover," Ratchet said. "During which, we'll have to make sure Triptychon didn't leave any corruption or corrosion in your coding." "I understand," Tai said as she pulled herself up. "And Tai," Lelouch got her attention. "Just in case there was ever any doubt, even though you may not be Cybertronian or human, you're still one of us," he said sincerely and honestly. Tai smiled back. "There was never any doubt in my mind, but it means a lot to hear you say that." "Till all are one," Lelouch nodded. "Till all are one," Tai repeated before she disappeared. "Will she be alright?" Lelouch asked Ratchet. "She'll be fine," the Autobot medic confirmed. "But while Tai can rest now, the rest of us cannot. We have 8 sets of coordinates to any potential doomsday device or sacred relic hidden on this planet. But so does Megatron." Lelouch followed, his expression turning serious as he looked toward the monitor where an image of the Earth was shown, and the 8 set of coordinates each pinpointed 8 separate spots across the planet. "And we both know he'll stop at nothing to obtain each and every one of them." Tunnel vision. "Alright, we have our teams assigned for all 8 locations," Lelouch said, clad in his Zero armor, standing in the bridge of the Ark along with Optimus, Ratchet, Ogi and Yuffie. "I'm transmitting the assignments now." He inputted the information on a data pad and sent it out to get everyone organized as quickly as possible. "Euphemia, you will remain here to help monitor Horai Island," Optimus instructed the former Britannian princess. "The military forces here are now under your direct command along with Kagaya should it come under attack by the enemy." "I understand," Yuffie nodded. "Hey Lelouch, Optimus, are you guys sure about this?" Ogi asked. "I mean, we're stretching our ranks pretty thin here." Ogi may have a point. Ratchet agreed. "Even with military and political support from the EU and Chinese Federation, we have yet to organize our coalition. Our own Black Knight and Autobot forces remain at a grave disadvantage number-wise. Unfortunately, we don't have a choice. Lelouch said. Based on what we've seen with previous Yakin relics, any one of them could tip the scales of this war in either favor. Indeed, under these circumstances, swiftness of action is paramount. Optimus added. This is one race that we absolutely cannot afford to lose. Meanwhile, the Nemesis continued to hover in the skies above Paris within the cloud cover, so they would not be spotted by any human eyes. However, that was among the least of Megatron's concerns as he spoke with Soundwave as well as Shockwave, via monitor screen, on the bridge of his warship. Dispatching multiple squadrons will enable us to pursue all 8 coordinates simultaneously. Megatron said. I have already organized my own forces within the Geass order and are ready to be deployed on your mark, Lord Megatron. Shockwave added. The door opened to reveal Knockout with a team of Decepticon miners behind him. Sir, I have assembled the mining detail you requested for the first set of coordinates. Although, I must question the need to employ Springload for this. That delusional amphiboid is more of a threat than an asset. Knockout sighed. This be so much easier if Breakdown was still here. This mission is critical. Megatron walked over to Knockout. Delusional or not, Springload's archaeological abilities will help you to retrieve the relic. This is not up for debate and I will not tolerate any excuses. Do you understand me, Knockout? Knockout chuckled nervously, knowing this wasn't up for debate. Explicitly, Lord Megatron. However, you are correct in the fact that the unfortunate loss of Breakdown has left you vulnerable. Megatron said. So, you will require appropriate support. I already have an assigned unit prepared for Knockout's detail. Shockwave revealed. Dark Knight Unit Orange will be deployed to the first set coordinates. Orange, huh? Knockout mused. Ironic how that pro-Britannian idiot was what started this whole mess with the Autobots and Zero back in Area 11, now he's our little puppet. Yes, irony indeed. Megatron sneered. Geass order. Yes, look at it. Arkvale laughed as he, Mad, and Bartley gazed up at the newly upgraded Dark Siegfried. We have taken all the data from our headmasters, battles with the enemy and successfully created a fully functional cerebral network. The fact that this particular pilot is a cyborg himself makes it quite easier. Mad added. He can literally plug the nightmare into his brain, making this unit faster and more perceptive than even the trashy Lancelot Asplund is so proud of. Why yes, it's quite an engineering feat. Bartley stuttered. But, I think we should test more to ensure that its development isn't. There is no time for testing, Bartley. A familiar voice spoke from within the Dark Siegfried. The mission assumes priority, so I will be going now. Inside the Dark Siegfried's central cockpit unit, was none other than Jeremiah Gottwald, his arms and legs mechanical along with his right eye. All 4 of his limbs were connected to machines and sensors while a series of cables connected to his spine and the back of his head to the rest of the cockpit. The time has come for my revenge, and I will not be denied this time. Jeremiah declared with his cybernetic eye glowing bright red. Meanwhile, from a monitoring station above the Dark Galahad, Joseph Finette watched as he clutched the locket in his pocket. A serious, yet nervous look, was on his face as he watched the Dark Siegfried's deployment. So much is riding on this, let's hope our gamble pays off. Horai Island. Zero stood on the shoulder of the Shinkiro alongside Optimus Prime as they addressed the majority of their forces outside, preparing them for their deployment. We have our teams assigned for the retrieval of the Yakin relics. Zero began. Alpha team will consist of myself, Optimus, Colin Kazuki, Konami Ogi, Suzaku Kururugi, and Elita 1, we'll be departing for Antarctica. Beta team, which will go to Paris, is made up of Bumblebee, RC, and Smokescreen with Millie Ashford, Rivals Cardamone, and Shirley Finette acting as a face team. Delta team will consist of the entirety of the Black Wyverns unit, Strongarm, Grindcore, and Sideswipe. You will embark for Egypt. Optimus continued. Gamma team consists of Ultra Magnus, Jazz, Cornelia Lee Britannia, Prowl, Gilbert Guilford, Monica Kruszewski and Chigusa, and they will venture into the heart of the Australian continent. Theta team is the combined unit of the Black Dragon and Aerial bots, and you will head along the Chinese Federation's Great Wall. Zero continued. Sigma team will consist of the Crimson Knights, along with Ratchet, Wizard, and Orpheus Zevon, and you will be heading to the Alps. Omega team will consist of Ironhide, Raikururugi, Bulkhead, Wheeljack, Nonet Enneagram, Shinichiro Tamaki, Chromia, Warpath, and Hot Shot, all of whom will be heading for a small volcanic island on the equator. Optimus began to wrap up. Zeta Team will consist only of Grimlock, Sarah, and Alice. You will be deployed to the ruined city of Chernobyl in the EU. Do everything you can to retrieve the relics. Zero instructed. If you are unable to retrieve them, then destroy them. We cannot risk them falling into enemy hands. Move out. With that, multiple ground bridge portals began to open as the assigned teams began to depart. Most of the teams were already gone, save for Alpha and Beta. Zero quickly flew down from his nightmare to address his 3 friends of the former student council who would be assigned with Beta. Remember, you 3 will be acting as face men. Zero told them. Though the Autobots and Black Knights are well known worldwide, we cannot risk civilians getting involved in this operation. Don't worry Lelouch, we'll run interference to make sure nobody gets in the way. Millie assured. Why do we have to go with the robots in disguise route again? Rivals asked. Wouldn't the cons have already blown a hole in Paris to get this relic thing? No, the Nemesis has already left the city. Zero replied. More than likely they're using the subway tunnels. Makes things easier for us, I suppose. RC said with a shrug. Aren't those tunnels where they bury dead human bodies? Smokescreen asked. No, but I have heard from Layla that the subway tunnels may be connected to the catacombs, but that's not important. Zero said before his mask opened, revealing his face before he addressed the brunette of the group. Shirley, are you sure you want to go along with this mission? I'm sure. She nodded. Because I need to know if your head is in this. Lelouch said. Don't take this the wrong way, I'm happy for you, knowing that your father is alive. But right now, this mission takes priority. If you can't focus on it. Lulu, it's okay. Shirley held up her hand to stop him, giving an assuring smile. Trust me, I'm here 100%. Lelouch felt somewhat unsure, but they were short on time, so he chose to accept it. Alright, I trust you. He nodded. Wait, I'm coming too. Lelouch and most of Beta Team looked in surprise to see Nunnally running toward them with Sayoko right behind her. Nunnally! Rivals exclaimed. Why you're coming? No, she is not. Lelouch insisted, narrowing his eyes toward his sister. Yes, I am. Nunnally insisted back. Lelouch, I know you're only trying to protect me, but I can help them. You are not a soldier. Lelouch stated. Neither are they. Nunnally gestured to Shirley, Millie, and Rivals. I can also help them run interference to protect Bumblebee and the other Autobots. I promise, I'm not going to get involved in any fights. I was against this at first, as well, Lord Lelouch. Sayoko said. But your sister was very insistent and would not take no for an answer. So I will be there to ensure that nothing happens to her. I still don't. Having Nunnally with them during their time in the EU was one thing, but sending her into a potential battle did not sit right with Lelouch. Okay, about this. If the worst happens, I'll grab her and call for a ground bridge and bring her right back, alright? Bumblebee offered, causing Lelouch to look up in surprise. She is your sister, Lelouch. Pretty sure she'll find a way to get involved even if you say no. And we'll help watch over her too. Millie added. So, you can turn the overprotective big brother switch off. Yeah, don't worry buddy, we got her back. Rivals also said. She'll be safe with us, Lelouch. Promise. Shirley said. Lelouch at first looked up toward RC and Smokescreen, the former shrugging her shoulders while the later just seemed to flow with it with a shrug of his own. He then glanced back to Optimus, hoping for some advice. But one look in the Prime's optics was enough to tell Lelouch that they didn't have any time to debate this. Alright. Lelouch relented, causing Nunnally to smile brightly, right before he pointed toward her face. But, if something happens, you come right back. Do you understand? I understand. Nunnally nodded with a smile. Lelouch then glanced down toward Nunnally's legs. Underneath her casual dress of civilian attire were her Cybertronian leg braces that were probably almost finished healing her legs by this point. Those will come off soon, he said to his sister. Just, make sure you don't lose them again, or more. Nunnally leapt up to wrap her arms around her brother's neck in a hug. I promise big brother, I won't do anything you wouldn't do, or that you would do. she joked, causing him to chuckle as he hugged her back before she pulled away and planted a quick kiss on his cheek. Lelouch. Optimus got his attention. We need to go. I know. The young revolutionary nodded back as his Zero mask went back up before flying back into the Shinkiro, powering it up and departing with Optimus, Alita, the Gurren, the Lancelot, and the Gawain Narian, right as Beta Team and their additional 2 members left as well. Paris. A single ground bridge portal opened in an alleyway between 2 buildings in Paris, allowing the vehicle modes of Bumblebee, RC, and Smokescreen to exit with their human companions before driving out into the street. Rivals rode on RC with a helmet on while Nunnally sat in Bumblebee's passenger seat with Sayoko in the driver's seat, and Millie and Shirley sat in Smokescreen's driver and passenger seats respectively. Seeing how they were undercover like their Autobot friends, the 4 of the 5 humans were wearing casual clothes to better blend in. Rivals wore a black jacket with a white shirt underneath and blue jeans and black shoes. Shirley had a pink sleeveless shirt, a white skirt and white sandals. Millie wore a casual blue blouse over a light blue knee-high dress and white heels. Nunnally had a green dress with white sleeves, the helm stretching down to her ankles where she had white flats on her feet. Sayoko, however, appeared to have a trench coat over whatever it was she chose to wear for this mission that could not be seen underneath. As the 3 disguised Autobots drove casually through the streets, effectively blending in, Nunnally couldn't help but look in amazement at the Europia capital, this being the first time she's seen it. Despite it undergoing construction and repairs, she was still in awe. Wow, this city, it's so beautiful. Nunnally looked in awe. Looks like it's been through the ringer though. Rivals pointed out. There was a riot here, courtesy of Steeljaw. RC reminded. But Layla was able to calm everyone down and get them to stop. Shirley recalled. I even heard she even convinced the EU government to shut down the ghettos and provide the refugees with proper shelter. Yep, the great Layla Breisgau. Millie said dramatically. She's pretty much the face of Europia now. I wouldn't be surprised if she was elected as its new leader once this was all over. Assuming she and Akito don't have plans of their own. She said with a teasing smirk. Why isn't Layla here? Smokescreen asked. Isn't this her hometown? She was sent with Akito and the others because their team is better suited for combat and were trying not to cause a scene. Bumblebee answered. Yeah, having someone as famous as Layla here would definitely draw attention. Shirley agreed. So, let's focus on getting underground and finding that relic before the cons do. RC got them back on track. But how are we gonna do that without being seen? Smokescreen asked. Sayoko glanced around for a possible solution and appeared to have found one. Over there. She lowered Bumblebee's window, pointing toward a nearby construction site. The group drove closer, finding an opening that led into the underground subway tunnels. Construction. Millie smiled. A fact of life in the big city. The group was able to successfully infiltrate the underground subway system and began to traverse through the tunnels, the 3 Autobots now in their natural Cybertronian forms as there appeared to be no civilians in sight at the moment. However, Shirley quickly noticed Smokescreen about to step onto the 3rd rail of one subway line. Smokescreen, stop. She quickly stopped him, just as his foot was less than a few feet above the rail, where a small spark of electricity emitted from the rail and lightly touched Smokescreen's foot. What is it? Some kind of landmine? The Autobot rookie asked. No, it's the 3rd rail. Shirley explained. It carries electricity to power the subway trains. One touch and zap, you're fried, Millie said for emphasis. Okay, watch where you step, got it? Smokescreen said somewhat nervously as he carefully stepped over and around the rail, avoiding touching it. Perhaps however it could be useful. Sayoko said. What makes you say that? RC asked. Under the right circumstances, anything can be a weapon. Sayoko said, causing rivals to look at her with awe. Hey, I didn't get a chance to ask before but, are you one of those lady ninjas? The term you're looking for is a kunoichi, and yes, I have received their training. Sayoko confirmed. Nunnally, you have the coolest mate bodyguard on the planet. Rivals praised. Well, present company excluded, of course. The young girl said, smiling up toward Bumblebee. Oh, so, I'm a maid, huh? B joked. Change those yellow stripes to white and you'd look the part. Nunnally joked back. Pretty sure though we won't be able to find a dress big enough for him. Shirley added in on the joke, causing the group to laugh, save for RC, though she did smile and shake her head in amusement. The Decepticon mining drill continued to burrow its way through the stone wall, with Knockout and Springload monitoring the progress as the drill pulled away and allowed the mining Viacons to enter the hole. "Could we please pick up the pace?" Knockout urged. "The humidity down here is threatening to corrode my undercarriage." He dusted his precious paint job, only to gasp in surprise as Springload leapt to him. "We cannot rush this delicate operation," Springload exclaimed, getting into the red Decepticon's face. "This relic could be the key to finding Doritus, and I will not tolerate any interference in my quest." He then leapt back to the site to monitor the Viacon's work. "Be warned, should this relic suffer damage, the spirits of Dorados will not be pleased, and I shall extend their wrath to you personally." Knockout rolled his eyes. Why Megatron choose to recruit him, I shall never know. A large shadow loomed over him, causing him to turn to the giant robotic form of the Dark Siegfried, which stood at twice his height, rivaling that of even Grimlock. "Must you hover? I must ensure the acquisition of the relic, as per Shockwave's instructions," Jeremiah said from inside. "Then go scout the area, make sure the Autobots and their Black Knight buddies don't get in the way," Knockout told him, waving his hand as he turned around. "Anything to get this annoyance out of his way." Within the cockpit, a smirk formed on Jeremiah's face. "As you wish." The Dark Siegfried transformed into its Night Giga Fortress mode, resembling a hovering sphere with spikes along its sides. The spikes rotated as the Dark Siegfried moved further into the tunnels. Meanwhile, the team of Autobots and Black Knights continued to make their way through the subway systems, but have so far encountered nothing as RC held the device in her hand to guide the way. "How long have we been down here?" Rivals asked. "Feels like we've been walking in circles." "Yeah, we gotta be close by now, right?" Smokescreen also asked. "Triangulating the coordinates is one thing, but figuring out how to reach them through this maze is another," RC said. "Wait, stop." Sayoko raised her hand, halting the group. "Does anyone hear that?" They all tried to listen for whatever kind of sound Sayoko may have heard, but Nunnally was the first to pick it up. The sound of echoed drilling. "I hear it, it sounds like drilling." "We gotta be close, but where is it?" Shirley asked. Bumblebee glanced backwards, finding a smaller maintenance pathway that led from their subway tunnel to another on the other side. "Over here. It's coming from down there," Millie observed. "It's too small for us to fit through," RC said. "For you guys maybe, but we can scout ahead," Nunnally replied, referring to herself and her friends. Nunnally, B tried to speak. "Only scouting, and we'll let you know if we find something." "I promise," Nunnally assured. "I'll make sure they don't get into trouble," Sayoko said, stepping up. "You have my word. It does sound like the cons have already started digging, so they got a major head start on us." "I say we let them," Smokescreen said. RC and Bumblebee exchanged eye contact and they both knew they probably had no choice. "Fine, but you only scout, got it?" RC told the kids. Aye, ma'am," Rivals saluted. "No trouble from us at all," Millie added as the 5 humans entered the smaller tunnel. It didn't take long for the group to reach the other side and into the adjacent subway tunnel, but it was incredibly dark and almost impossible for the group to see. "I can't see anything," Rivals said. "Anyone got a flashlight on them?" Suddenly, a massive light shined down on the group, causing them to squint before they all looked up with a gasp to see the hovering Dark Siegfried, still in its Night Giga Fortress mode looming over them. "Is that better?" the pilot inside asked. "Hang on, doesn't that voice sound familiar?" Shirley asked. Millie gasped as she recognized it. "Yeah, it's from that pureblood who tried to frame Suzaku way back when. My name is Jeremiah Gottwald," the cybernetic pilot inside said as he saw each of the 5 people through his eye and optic plugged into the nightmare. He happened to recognize the brunette girl. "Shirley Finette, what are the odds I'd find you here? Your father's hunch of being with the Black Knights was spot on, it seems." His eyes then set on the youngest of the group, but the second they did, his eyes widened, pupils shrinking as his face wavered with absolute shock. That face, those eyes, he had seen those features before. From a beautiful woman with raven black hair and violet eyes, and her adorable little girl with sandy brown hair and those same eyes. From a time that had long passed, from a person he'd never thought he'd ever see again. Princess, Nunnally. A series of energon guns appeared all across the Dark Siegfried's body and opened fire in all directions, creating smoke and chaos as the group screamed, trying to run back and find cover in the tunnel they came by. "Let's get out of here," Rivals exclaimed. However, a hatch in the front of the Dark Siegfried opened as something shot out from it. It landed with a thud in the middle of the group, breaking them apart and scattering them throughout the dust cloud. Nunnally coughed and waved the dust away as she laid on the ground, only to gasp as she saw the cybernetic Jeremiah standing in front of her, gazing down at her with a seemingly stoic expression, though his eyes continued to shake as he saw her. Her screams caught everyone's attention as Sayoko, Shirley, Rivals, and Millie saw the dust clear, revealing Jeremiah holding the struggling Nunnally in his arms. "Stop! Let me go!" she exclaimed as he leapt back up into the open cockpit of the Dark Siegfried, which quickly closed with both of them inside. "Nunnally!" Shirley exclaimed as Sayoko was the first to run forward, throwing away her trench coat to reveal her current attire. She was dressed almost completely in black, like a professional kunoichi with silver-armored shoulder pads, arm and leg braces, and the Autobot Black Knight emblem engraved on both shoulder pads. She leapt toward the Dark Siegfried, pulling a kunai to jam it into the cockpit and force it open, but an electrical surge shocked her off, knocking her down where Millie and Rivals attempted to catch her, only to be knocked down. The Dark Siegfried spun its spikes again as it dug its way through the wall near the pathway they had just emerged from. RC, Smokescreen, and Bumblebee were caught by surprise as the Dark Siegfried emerged from the wall. Before the three Autobots had a chance to react, it shot its way toward them, forcing them to dodge and skid across the ground as the Dark Siegfried flew further away. Guys! Millie called for the bots as she and her friends ran out from the hole the Dark Siegfried made. "What in the scrap was that?" Smokescreen questioned. "It's that Jeremiah guy from the Purebloods," Millie exclaimed. "And he took Nunnally." "What?" Bumblebee exclaimed. "Orange Boy again," RC also questioned. "How many times do we have to get rid of that guy?" "We'll go get her," Smokescreen tried to speak, but Sayoko interrupted him. "No, you'll retrieve the relic, we'll rescue Nunnally," the kunoichi stated. "You kids, against that?" RC questioned. "Not happening. We're calling reinforcements." "No, we don't have time," Shirley shouted. "How about this? B, you said you would help watch over Nunnally, right? So you help us get her back. RC and Smokescreen, you guys go through that hole he made and get the relic. If we move now, we can get both of them. So, no arguing. Not now." The entire group, including her former classmates, looked toward Shirley in surprise. She was so direct and firm in her tone that it almost sounded like she was ordering them. In fact, that's probably exactly what she was doing. And they all knew she was right. Time was not on their side and they stood a better chance if they split up. Millie found herself smirking toward Shirley with pride. "All right, let's go," B said as he transformed, honking his horn as all four of his car doors opened. "Well, you all heard the lady. Let's get going," Millie directed as she, Shirley, Rivals, and Sayoko quickly got into Bumblebee's vehicle mode before the blonde looked up at the two remaining Autobots. "Leave Nunnally and Orange Boy to us. Most of us may not be fighters, but we got a few tricks up our sleeve. Just you wait." She smiled and gave a thumbs up before the door closed and B drove off with his passengers inside. "Are we sure about this?" Smokescreen asked RC. "I get being even that ninja lady, but those kids. They're not kids, anymore," RC said, feeling a sense of pride in each of them. "They're Black Knights. They got their job, and we got ours. Let's move." Back with the Decepticons, the miners had managed to clear away a large portion of debris to reveal the relic they had been sent to retrieve. "Well, let me see it already," Knockout ordered. They stepped aside to allow Knockout to see the container that had been used to transport the relic off Cybertron, with the potential weapon of mass destruction still inside. However, RC and Smokescreen had also arrived on the scene. Hiding behind the wall that was around the corner of the intersecting tunnel, both Autobots had their Energon blasters primed and ready. "Lock and load," RC said in a whisper. "Pillagers." Something shot down from the ceiling above to kick back RC and Smokescreen, revealing it to Springload. "The unworthy shall never claim Doradus." He shot his tongue at them, forcing them to separate as his corrosive saliva melted the ground they were standing on before they opened fire on the crazed amphiboid, who leapt along the walls and ceiling to avoid the energon blasts. The resulting firefight alerted Knockout and the Viacons, causing them to run back into the main subway tunnel to see the scuffle. Smokescreen continued to shoot at Springload as he leapt up to the ceiling and leapt down to deliver a kick and knock the rookie Autobot back. RC tried to grab a hold of him from above, wrapping one arm around his neck as she drew her blade in her other arm, but Springload leapt upward, crashing RC into the ceiling and forcing her to let go before he landed on the ground. Attack, already! Knockout ordered the Viacons, who ran to join the fight in response. RC noticed the incoming Decepticons. I'll get the relic. I got this guy. Smokescreen replied as he opened fire at Springload again, who leapt backwards to avoid the blasts. Hold still, you jumpy little. RC ran toward the Viacons as they opened fire on her, but she was quick to avoid the blasts while she returned fire herself. She gunned one Viacon down, jumping from his falling body to land a kick to the face of the second with enough force to cave his whole head in before rushing the final Viacon to decapitate it with a slice of her arm blades, flipping and landing on her feet. However, this also left her open for Knockout to strike her from behind with a slice from his buzzsaw. You have lovely features. Perfect for a little procedure I call the nip and tuck. He lunged his saw at her again, but RC swerved around to deliver a kick to his back, one strong enough to knock him into the wall. Dodge and kick. RC smirked before running into the tunnel to find the unearthed relic. She tried to grab the container and pull it out, but it seemed stuck in its place. Springload shot his tongue out again, but Smokescreen dodged it as the tongue hit and took down a light on the wall, causing it to flicker and add some dramatic effect onto the scene. Springload leapt to deliver a headbutt to Smokescreen, knocking him into the wall. Smoke moved to dodge a kick that would have likely caved his chest in and was able to deliver a punch to Springload's face and push him down. But, right as Smokescreen made an advance, Springload pulled back his rear legs and struck them both at Smokescreen, sending him crashing and skidding along the ceiling before falling to the ground, being knocked unconscious in the process. RC tried her hardest to yank the container out, but it still wouldn't budge. She gave a sudden, pain-inducing yell, as Knockout jammed his electric prod into her back, shocking her and knocking her unconscious as well. Shock and drop. Meanwhile, the Dark Siegfried was parked outside a tunnel that led into the ancient catacombs throughout Paris's underground. Nunnally was dropped on the ground, where she backed away as Jeremiah stood forward. She tried to put on a brave face, but being alone with a dangerous cyborg who endangered her friends, combined with the fact she was in a dark tunnel that was lined with hundreds of human skulls, was enough to make anyone more than a little nervous. The catacombs of Paris. Jeremiah began. A tomb underneath the EU capital where thousands upon thousands were laid to rest. It's rather small, perfect for us to have a conversation without being interrupted by any Autobots or Decepticons. What do you want with me? Nunnally questioned, standing up as she glared defiantly at her captor. I have questions that I would like answers to. Jeremiah replied. I'm not telling you anything. She would never sell out any information about her brother and friends. You misunderstand, this is not an interrogation. Jeremiah spoke in a civil term. I merely have honest questions that I would like answers to, Princess Nunnally v. Britannia. Her eyes narrowed. Let me guess, you want to know why a member of the old royal family is working with the Autobots and Black Knights, enemies of the old Britannia. That is one question, yes. Jeremiah confirmed. But my first one, is how you are able to walk and see again. The last time I saw you, you were confined to a wheelchair and traumatized with blindness. Your condition was so extreme, not even the most advanced Britannian medical sciences could restore what you lost. That's not your concern. The former princess replied. Jeremiah's cyborg eye lit up as he began to scan her and noticed what was attached to her legs. I see, Cybertronian nanotechnology, being used to repair the damage to your legs and rebuilding the fatigued muscles from their lack of use these past 8 years. Not too different from the technology currently inside me, but unlike with you, my body isn't healing but rather being used as a living weapon. I suppose that is the fundamental difference between the Autobots and the Decepticons. But still, why would they go out of their way to heal a member of the royal family even though they declared war on her father? If I'm being honest, I stopped considering that man my father the second he banished my brother and I, throwing us away like we meant nothing. Nunnally said. I may not celebrate his death or anything, but I am glad he's gone, knowing he can never hurt anyone else I love ever again. Optimus Prime has been the one who has been like a father to me. Surprisingly, Jeremiah remained composed. One would think such a declaration against the late Britannian Emperor would send a pureblood into a fury. The way you talk of your brother suggests he is alive, is it true? Does Lelouch v Britannia still live? Nunnally remained silent, glaring even further. You're not denying it, so I must be correct. Has he sided with the Black Knights and Autobots as well? Why would I ever tell anything to you, after what you did to Suzaku? Nunnally exclaimed. You framed him. You would have had him killed for a crime he didn't commit. All her shouts, not just from Jeremiah's actions against Suzaku, but even her own disdain toward her late father were from her own inner anger. Despite smiling during the time she was confined to a wheelchair, and the happy times she had with her brother, there was indeed anger and resentment buried underneath, just like her older brother. She was angry at her father for banishing her and Lelouch. She was angry at whoever took their beloved mother away from them. She was angry at most of the world for their non-stop fighting and bloodshed. Countless people dying every day because they couldn't find the time to sit down and talk things out, and spearheading it all was Britannia. She only kept her anger inside because she didn't want to burden her brother with it, even though she knew he felt exactly the same way. But now, she and Lelouch and so many other people are working to fix the world and make it better, and she would do everything she can to see that it happens, and they can all be truly happy again. I don't care what you do to me, I am never going to tell you anything. Nunnally said with determination. I'll help stop Megatron and build the kind of world that he and Britannia would never even dream of creating. A world where we can all live in peace and happiness. Before Jeremiah had a chance to even reply, a series of smoke bombs were thrown, creating a smokescreen around the pair. As Nunnally covered her face, she felt some arms around her. Nunnally, it's okay. It's us. She heard Millie's voice, revealing it to be her, Shirley, and Rivals. We're getting you out of here. Let's go. Rivals said as the three led Nunnally through the smoke and out of the catacombs. Don't think a simple smokescreen will be enough to stop me. Jeremiah's cybernetic eye converted his vision to infrared, but the only thing he saw is an incoming foot to his face that knocked him back. The smoke began to clear to reveal Sayoko running directly at him, drawing a kunai to jam at him, but an arm blade from his right arm appeared to parry that kunai, seemingly leaving him vulnerable for her to drive a second kunai into his shoulder, but all it impacted was metal. He swung his blade at her, but she jumped backwards to get some distance. You're more machine than man, I see. Sayoko observed. And I have Shockwave to thank for that. Jeremiah's second arm produced another arm blade as he readied himself for a fight as Sayoko charged him, kunai in both her hands, clashing and parrying blades rapidly. Cyborg or not, your exposed human parts are vulnerable. Sayoko tried to strike at whatever human vital part she could find, but Jeremiah was quick to anticipate and block each of her strikes, save for both her feet that struck his face to push him back. Your skill in martial arts is impressive. Jeremiah granted her, but it won't impede Jeremiah Gottwald. Save your flattery. Sayoko tried to rush him again, but as he swung his arm blades, she ducked and slid underneath his legs before running toward the exit of the catacombs, prompting Jeremiah to give chase. However, the second he entered the subway tunnels again, he was forced to jump backwards to avoid the energon blast shot at him by Bumblebee. Accursed Autobot. He growled as he ran back towards his stationary Dark Siegfried, quickly leaping into its cockpit, where the plugs and mechanical parts all automatically attached to him, the Night Giga Fortress reactivating. He glared through the outer optics at Bumblebee, before zooming behind him to see the glaring Shirley, Sayoko, Millie, and Rivals, all surrounding Nunnally. Tell me, Autobot, do you consider yourself worthy to protect Lady Nunnally? Jeremiah questioned Bumblebee specifically. He knows about you. Shirley looked toward Nunnally in surprise. Yeah, he must have recognized me. The former princess confirmed. Answer me, Autobot. Jeremiah demanded. He's a far better friend to her than someone like you. Rivals exclaimed, pointing to Jeremiah. The pilot of the Dark Siegfried glanced briefly at the student before looking directly into Bumblebee's narrowed optics. Even though they were different species, Jeremiah recognized the expression on the Autobot scout's face. The expression that silently said this Autobot would lay down his very life to keep those around him safe, particularly Nunnally. He didn't quite understand at the time he first encountered the Autobots, but now he did. These were not metal monstrosities, but true warriors. He was too blind by his own personal vendetta and bigotry to realize it, but no longer. You are named Bumblebee, correct? Jeremiah addressed the scout as the Dark Siegfried transformed into its large humanoid appearance. I, Jeremiah Gottwald, challenge you to a duel. Let me see for myself if you are truly worthy of protecting the princess. Bumblebee stood straight, glancing back toward the humans, to Nunnally in particular. He gave her an assuring nod before drawing his katana, facing the Dark Siegfried directly and making a hand gesture to bring it on. Jeremiah smirked before 7 Harkins fired from the Dark Siegfried's chest all at once, but Bumblebee slashed at the 3 on the left with his katana, avoiding the remaining 4 as he moved in closer to slice at its right leg, but the Dark Siegfried stepped back to avoid the swing just as it threw its right fist toward B, but he swerved around the strike and slashed at the legs, bringing the Dark Siegfried down. However, Jeremiah was not out yet as he moved quickly to strike Bumblebee with a swipe of the Dark Siegfried's right arm knocked B down to the ground. Bumblebee! Shirley cried out as she and her friends continued to watch the fight. However, Bumblebee quickly recovered and rolled out of the way of a stomp from the enemy Nightmare, running backwards while keeping his optics trained on his opponent. I see what he's doing. He wants me to follow him and keep the princess and her friends out of harm's way. Very perceptive, Jeremiah thought, sounding impressed before advancing on the smaller Autobot. He swung the Dark Siegfried's fists at Bumblebee, but he was swift to dodge all the strikes, swinging his katana at the Nightmare's side and causing some damage, but the Dark Siegfried quickly reacted to catch the katana. B tried to thrust it forward. Jeremiah threw the weapon away before kicking Bumblebee into the wall, the scout appearing knocked out. The Dark Siegfried walked over and picked Bumblebee up by the arm. Is that truly all you can do? I may have overestimated you, Jeremiah said, sounding disappointed. But Bumblebee was only faking it as he quickly brought his energon blaster to fire a charged shot into the right shoulder joint, forcing the Dark Siegfried to let B go and allowing the black and yellow scout to rush the Nightmare and deck a series of punches across its body before delivering a cartwheel kick to its head unit and knock it back before B fired more shots directly into the right shoulder he already damaged and weakened, causing it to break and fall off. Jeremiah grunted, feeling the lost limb of his own Nightmare, like his own right arm had just gone limp. But despite that, he couldn't help but chuckle. Feigning defeat to exploit a potential weakness, now that's more like it. Jeremiah grinned. Yeah, that's what I'm talking about. Rivals cheered. Show him who's boss, Bumblebee. Millie also cheered. You got this, B. Shirley cheered as well. However, while Nunnally was happy to see Bumblebee doing so well, she couldn't help but get this odd feeling about Jeremiah. Based on what she heard, he had been transformed into an obedient cyborg in service of the Decepticons, but based on her interaction with him, he seemed to have a will of his own. Even now, this fight seemed more like a test than an actual fight to the death. Just what was it that Jeremiah was planning? What did he hope to gain from this? B quickly recovered his downed katana as the downed Dark Siegfried tried to close the gap, but as it tried to strike with its only available arm, Bumblebee rolled underneath its legs before thrusting his katana into the back of its left knee, slicing to completely sever the joint and bring the large Nightmare down on its knees. Acting quickly, Bumblebee impaled the katana into the back of the Dark Siegfried's head, effectively shutting it down as he pulled out his sword and watched the enemy Nightmare collapse. Dude, Bumblebee. Way to go. Rivals cheered. Way to show Orange who's boss. Wait. Sayoko stopped all celebrations. It's not over yet. The cockpit hissed open as the cybernetic Jeremiah stepped out, landing on the ground where Bumblebee aimed his energon blasters directly at him, and Sayoko had her kunai prepared, standing in front of Nunnally. Guy's as stubborn as rock, I'll give him that. Millie commented. Lady Nunnally. I must know, where is your brother? Where is Lelouch v Britannia? Jeremiah questioned. What do you want with Lulu? Shirley exclaimed, standing in front of Nunnally as well. What does he have to do with this? She did her best to hide his identity as Zero. Is he with the Black Knights and Autobots too? Jeremiah continued to question. Why would you two betray your homeland? Your distaste for the late emperor was one thing, but to make an enemy out of him, out of the most powerful man in the world. Because my brother is Zero. Nunnally shouted, causing Jeremiah to gasp as everyone else looked to her in surprise. If he was so dead set on knowing, she might as well tell him. They've already disabled his nightmare so they could take him prisoner. It shouldn't be that hard to figure out. Our mother was murdered, and he didn't do a thing to stop it. He threw us away and left us to die. I know, I remember because I was there too. Jeremiah revealed. Nobody expected that, not Shirley, not Rivals, not Millie, not Sayoko, not Bumblebee, and especially not Nunnally. What? Bee bleeped in surprise. Why you were there? Nunnally stuttered. My first assignment, to guard her, Lady Marianne, whom I loved and respected. He fell to his own knees, his frustration over his past failure coming to the surface. But I failed to carry through with that loyalty. I just wasn't able to protect her. That must be why he founded the Purebloods, Millie said in realization. Lady Nunnally, everything is becoming clear now, an emotional smile formed on Jeremiah's face. Your brother, Master Lelouch, became Zero for your sake and your mother's sake, didn't he? Wait, is he crying? Rivals questioned as he saw tears in Jeremiah's only organic eye flowing down his face. Why? Why are you? Nunnally didn't know what to say to any of this. What are you trying to do? I don't serve Megatron, I follow only one, it's Lady Marianne. Jeremiah continued to cry in relief. I may have failed her, but I won't fail her children. He quickly produced his right arm blade and used it to impale himself in the side. Everyone gasped at that, even Bumblebee's optics widened in shock as Jeremiah painfully wrenched his blade out to pull out some sort of Cybertronian orb-like device, which he grabbed with his free hand and crushed it in his mechanical grip, before falling to his hands and knees, holding his wound as a blood energon hybrid-like fluid leaked out from his wound. What did you just do? Shirley exclaimed. Look toward the stars as we have done, Jeremiah grunted, causing Shirley's eyes to widen as her pupils shook emotionally. That was the message your father passed on to Anya Alstrheim, who passed it on to your friends, and now I pass that same message from him to you, Shirley Finette. Everyone looked toward Shirley as her body quaked and shook. My father, how do you? He is held captive in the Geass order, Jeremiah began to explain as he pushed himself to stand up on his own 2 feet. As you already know, I have been turned into a cyborg by the Decepticon scientist named Shockwave and made into an obedient drone. However, Joseph Finette was able to help restore my free will and we worked with young Anya to devise a plan to not only escape, but cripple Shockwave's entire operation. I know where to find the Geass order, as well as all the thought elevators under Decepticon control. But what did you just rip out? Was it like your power core or something? Rivals questioned. Something like that, Jeremiah continued. You could say it was my mechanical heart, but it also carried a signal that showed Shockwave my location, no matter where on Earth I'd be. However, in addition to restoring my free will, Joseph was able to install a backup core to keep my systems functioning, one that wasn't connected to the Decepticon network. I get it, you want the Decepticons to think you're dead. Bumblebee said. This way, we can get a surprise attack on the Geass order and the thought elevators. Exactly. Jeremiah confirmed. Wait, how do you understand Bumblebee? Rivals asked. My implants allow me to understand even Cybertronian code. Jeremiah replied. He turned to look directly at Nunnally, who still seemed unsure with this whole development. Lady Nunnally, I understand that my previous actions, especially before I was turned into a weapon against my will, were dishonorable and heinous. I won't ask for your forgiveness, but I swear to you, if you will allow me, I will serve you and your brother with the utmost of loyalty and respect. He kneeled before her, much to her shock and that of all her friends. Though I am far unworthy compared to the Autobot who stands before me, I will give anything and everything to see your dream of a better world fulfilled, even at the cost of my own life. Nunnally really had no idea what to say. She could tell that every word he spoke was the truth. Perhaps it was a natural ability that developed with her during her time when she was blind and confined to a wheelchair, or perhaps it was a special kind of intuition she shared with her brother and further grown by the influence of Optimus. But she knew that he meant everything he said. If it was all true, not only could they learn the location of the Geass Order and all the thought elevators, striking a decisive blow to the Decepticons, but they may even be able to rescue Shirley's father. For that reason, she decided to trust him. Jeremiah, right. Nunnally walked toward him as he lifted his head to look at her in the eyes. If you're serious about helping us, then help us with our mission now. Help us get the Yakin relic, and then we can talk. I understand, and I thank you for this chance, Your Majesty. Jeremiah bowed his head humbly. Lady Nunnally, are you sure about this? Sayoko asked. Yeah, maybe he's still programmed, and this could be a Decepticon trap. Rivals added. But he knew the message, my father's message. The same one Anya told us. Shirley stated. I don't think this is a trap. I don't think it is either. Millie agreed. Plus, if he's right, we could get a major victory over the cons. Nunnally glanced up toward Bumblebee, wondering what he would have to say. Though the Autobot scout was unsure if he could trust Jeremiah, he knew he could trust Nunnally. So with a serious expression, Bumblebee gave a single nod in confirmation. All right, Nunnally said, offering Jeremiah a hand, which he graciously accepted and stood up. First things first, who are the Decepticons with you? Aside from the mining detail, there are two to be concerned of. Jeremiah explained. The Decepticon scientist and medic, Knockout, and a delusional amphiboid named Springload. We already know Knockout, but who exactly is this Springload? Shirley asked. A Decepticon who is obsessed with finding something called Dorados. Jeremiah answered. Dora what? Rivals asked. Dorados. Bumblebee answered. A mythological Cybertronian land and home to the Fountain of Energon, granting eternal power and energy to whoever finds it. Sounds like a real Atlantis. Millie commented. Springload however believes it to be real and has allowed his mental stability to degrade from his obsession, up to the point where he claims to be guided by the so-called spirits of Dorados. Jeremiah said. Nunnally then began to think. She knew who Knockout was from her brother and his closest Autobot friends, and now she knew who this Springload was. Maybe there was a way they could use his obsession against him. She also recalled passing by a train depot with her team just after they entered the subway tunnels, and there were several empty trains stationed there. I have a plan. Smokescreen and RC's unconscious bodies were laid on the ground as Knockout and Springload loomed over them. Heretics. Pillagers. Unworthies. Springload exclaimed to the two unconscious Autobots. They shall pay for their attempt at desecration. And I think I know the best way to do just that, my amphibious friend. Knockout held the Yakin relic container, opened it and pulled out relic inside. It appeared to be a small circular device with four claw-like blades pointing outward. By seeing what our new weapon of mass destruction can do with a little on-site experiment. Suddenly, Bumblebee's vehicle mode arrived on the scene, kicking in at maximum overdrive to slam into both Springload and Knockout, sending the former flying and crashing along the wall while the latter was pinned underneath Bumblebee's rear wheels, which he purposely drove on to leave skid marks before transforming to snatch the relic that Knockout had dropped, and turned around to face the recovering Decepticon pair. Knockout looked with a gasp to see the tire marks on his chest. Hey, watch the finish. Springload attacked first, shooting out his tongue toward Bumblebee, who rolled to the side and opened fire with his energon blasters. Before they had a chance to retaliate, RC and Smokescreen had also recovered and opened fire with their own energon blasters as well. Smoke, catch. B threw the relic toward Smokescreen, which he caught. Head back the way we came. RC, follow me. I know where to find Dorados. That got Springload's attention as he gasped from his perching position on the wall. Dorados. B, what are you? RC questioned in confusion but got a quick call on her communicator. RC, go with it. Trust us, we have a plan. Millie's voice said on the other line. And we found Nunnally, so don't worry about her. Deciding to go along with it, RC nodded to Bumblebee. You heard Smoke. Get the relic out of here. We'll secure Dorados. She and Bumblebee both transformed and drove back the way became. No, you will not pillage Dorados. Its secrets will belong to me. Springload quickly transformed into his own vehicle mode and sped off after them. Knockout was about to protest Springload's actions, but quickly turned around at the sound of Smokescreen transforming and saw him speed off in the opposite direction with the relic in tow. Ah! At least Breakdown knew how to prioritize. Knockout growled as he transformed and drove after Smokescreen. As Smokescreen continued to drive through the subway tunnels, he received a transmission from one of his human teammates. "Smoke, are you there, buddy?" "I'm here, Rivals. Mind telling me what's going on?" Smokescreen asked. "Is there really a fabled energon fountain here on Earth?" "No, that's just part of our plan." "Is Knockout with you?" Rivals asked. "Right behind me," Smokescreen confirmed as his rearview mirror spotted the headlights of the incoming Decepticon. "Good. Lead him back to those trains that we found when we first came in here," Rivals told him. "You got it," Smokescreen said, deciding to put his trust in his friends as he called out to Knockout. "You want this relic? You're gonna have to try harder than that, Slowpoke." Smokescreen sped up, leaving Knockout in his dust, literally. "Ooh, I'm going to enjoy peeling your features off," Knockout growled as he increased his speed as well, trying to close the ever-increasing gap between him and his quarry. "Smokescreen's on his way," Rivals said as he, Jeremiah, and Shirley were in one of the trains that was stationed and currently inoperative. The train cars were all lined up, facing outward toward the tracks with 3 tunnels splitting off in separate directions. "Okay, I think I got this." Shirley was underneath the controls of the train car, working to hotwire it. There was a spark when she brought the wires together, which seemed to power up the large vehicle. "I got it." "Very impressive." Jeremiah nodded. "I never thought a Britannian high schooler would know how to hotwire a vehicle, never thought they had a need to. Because we were such law-abiding citizens while the so-called numbers were all common criminals by birth," Shirley said with a glare as she got up. "I deserved that." Jeremiah nodded. "We're putting a whole lot of trust in you, pal," Rivals told him. "If this plan of yours to bring down the Geass order is gonna work, the cons can't see you, cause if they do, they'll know I'm alive and betrayed them, which will prompt Shockwave to relocate the Geass order and strengthen security around the thought elevators, disregarding the element of surprise that is absolutely necessary for the plan to succeed." "I understand," Jeremiah said. "Good, because I want my father back," Shirley said. "And I want to stop the Decepticons. If we have chance to pull it off, I'm willing to take the risk. But you're going to have to earn our trust." "Of course, that was my intent from the beginning," Jeremiah replied. RC and Bumblebee's respective vehicle modes continued to race through the subway tunnels with Springload close behind them. Once they passed a certain area that was close to the entrance to the catacombs, Bee dropped a flash bomb from his trunk. A bright and piercing light shined throughout the tunnel, causing Springload's own vehicle mode to stop, where he held his hands in front of his eyes. "Ah, my optics." The light soon vanished, revealing the 2 Autobots he had been chasing had vanished completely, or so it seemed as they hid behind the broken remains of the Dark Siegfried further down the tunnel. "Marauders, show yourselves," Springload called out. "You could not have possibly found Dorados. Only I am worthy of its treasures." "Unworthy? Wah, who said that?" Springload looked around for the source of this ominous sound, which sounded an awful lot like 2 young females speaking simultaneously. "Unworthy." He heard the sound echoing from the entrance to the catacombs and looked closer, only to gasp in shock as he saw what appeared to be a severed head slowly moving along the ground around the walls of human skulls, coming closer toward him. "The spirits of Dorados have decreed. You do not deserve the treasure. You are unworthy." Springload backed away, fear and despair filling his eyes. "No, I've worked hard, tirelessly. And you're long overdue for a rest." He turned around to see RC strike with a flying kick to knock him down to a rail track, his head being awfully close to the 3rd rail, but not quite close enough. Before he had a chance to pull himself up, Bumblebee came in with the severed arm of the Dark Siegfried and pressed it down on his throat, with RC helping to push it down further as Springload struggled against them. It proved to be a struggle for both parties, until he frantically shot his tongue upward, which was what they were hoping for. "Sayoko, now," Bee announced. Letting herself fall from her hanging position in the ceiling, Sayoko brought down a rod with a kunai tied to the end and pierced through Springload's tongue, embedding it into the 3rd rail. Sayoko flipped back as Bee and RC leapt backwards as well, just in time for the electric charge to travel from the 3rd rail, up the rod and into Springload's pierced tongue, electrocuting his entire body from the inside out. After a few seconds, the amphiboid's body collapsed, smoke and sparks of electricity emanating from his body before his red optics went dark forever. Springload was now dead. Shock and drop. RC said as Nunnally and Millie stepped out from behind the nightmare head and left the catacombs. Nice ghost impression. Millie's idea, right? Actually, the whole thing was Nunnally's. The blonde said as she wrapped her arm around the younger girl in congratulatory fashion. She's really picked up on her brother's devious nature, it's actually kind of frightening. I'm just glad this part of my plan worked. Nunnally said. Now let's just hope the other half also works. Smokescreen continued to soar through the tunnels, trying to get his assigned destination as fast as he could with Knockout right behind him. The Decepticon's vehicle mode was able to catch up with the rookie Autobot, banging his side against Smokescreen's, who banged back in response before Knockout transformed and stuck out his leg to trip up Smokescreen, but this resulted in both of them tripping and rolling over each other, with Smokescreen losing his grip on the relic, which bounced along the track before coming to a stop. Fortunately, they were right where they needed to be, at the intersection between 3 tunnels with the unmanned trains stationed in front of them. Knockout growled as he got up and made a break for the relic, with Smokescreen coming up from behind to tackle as they wrestled for the relic. Inside their car, Shirley, Rivals, and Jeremiah were all set, but they happened to see the struggle occurring outside, and it didn't seem like either Smokescreen or Knockout noticed them. The engine is prepared, we must go now. Jeremiah urged. No, Smokescreen is still out there. Rivals exclaimed. Shirley accessed her comms so that Knockout couldn't hear her. Smokescreen, get out of the way. Not without the relic, Smokescreen replied as he crawled on the ground to try and grab said relic, but Knockout grabbed him by the foot and tried to drag him back, only for Smoke to kick him back and knock him down. However, during their struggle, the relic appeared to have activated as it glowed slightly and emitted a pulsating high-pitched noise. As Smokescreen reached for it, the relic somehow attached itself to his wrist, much to his surprise as he stood up to examine it. Knockout drew his buzzsaw and prepared to strike from behind, something the humans in the train noticed. Smokescreen, behind you, Rivals warned, causing Smokescreen to turn around in time as Knockout sliced his buzzsaw, only for it and Knockout himself to phase through Smokescreen's whole body like he wasn't even there, much to everyone's surprise. Even Jeremiah was completely caught off guard with a gasp as his cybernetic eye attempted to scan Smokescreen for the source of this unusual anomaly. Whoa, Shirley said in surprise. Knockout looked confused for a moment, but his expression turned into frustration as he transformed his other hand into a drill and tried to impale Smokescreen, only to get the same result of the drill phasing through the young Autobot without any damage. Getting an idea, Smokescreen smirked before proceeding to taunt his enemy. That all you got? Starscream can hit harder than you. He mocked as he walked backwards slightly, causing Knockout to glare in rage as he continued to try and attack Smokescreen, but all the attacks still phased through him. Come on, you hit even worse than how your paint job looks. He said as he positioned himself just in front of the train his human friends were inside. Oh, that tears it. Knockout lost all sense of self-control at that, trying to lunge straight at Smokescreen with both his weapons, but he still phased through before Smokescreen quickly took off the relic from his wrist and dealt a punch to Knockout to knock him face flat on the ground before reattaching the relic to his wrist, which activated upon contact. Guys, do it now, Smokescreen exclaimed. Having already deduced what had happened with his cybernetic eye and brain, Jeremiah activated the train's controls and pressed hard to send the train forward at full speed, much to Shirley and Rivals' shock. Whoa, what are you? Rivals tried to stop him, but he and Shirley covered themselves as it appeared they were about to crash into Smokescreen, but they and the whole speeding train phased through him like what happened with Knockout. Before they had a chance to react to it, the recovering Knockout gasped in shock as the train slammed into him. Knockout tried to push back against it, digging his feet into the ground, but Jeremiah pressed on the controls, making the train go as fast as it could. This caused Knockout to trip up, slamming on the ground face first as the train pushed him further, grinding and dragging him through the ground and metal tracks that scrapped against his body, yelling in pain the whole way. Jeremiah tried to push the train even further, but Knockout's Cybertronian body was more durable than the train could handle. Already its engines began to smoke and overheat from the intense pressure Jeremiah was putting on before it totally shut down and came to a grinding stop. However, they had still made quite a distance, about 400 yards in total from where they emerged. Shirley and Rivals pulled themselves up and looked out the cracked window to see Knockout, lying face flat on the ground before quickly making their way to the other side of the train car, stepping out from the exit door, but Shirley quickly turned to Jeremiah. "Stay here and stay hidden for now," she told him, to which he nodded in return as he went into a small maintenance closet to avoid being seen. "Smoke, dude," Rivals exclaimed as he and Shirley approached him, with Bumblebee and RC's vehicle modes arriving on the scene as well, carrying Sayoko, Nunnally, and Millie before they stepped out, allowing the Autobots to transform. "How are you?" The train went right through him, Shirley told her newly arrived friends. "And I mean literally. Like he wasn't even there. All thanks to this little thing." Smokescreen showed the relic that was still attached to his wrist. "Phase shifter," RC explained, recognizing the Cybertronian tool. "Handy when you need to pass through solid objects, or vice versa." She put her own arm through Smokescreen's body for emphasis, much to Millie's, Nunnally's and Sayoko's surprise. "Impressive." Sayoko nodded. "Now that is a cool relic." Millie grinned as Smokescreen removed the shifter from his person. "Oh, the pranks we can pull with that." Knockout struggled to pull himself up, using the train car for support. But as he did, he noticed his reflection in the broken window. His paint job was so horrifically scared and scratched, he was barely recognizable. Though the damage to his body was at most cosmetic, it was the absolute worst-case scenario for the narcissistic Decepticon. "No. NNNOOOOOOO." The 3 Autobots and 5 Black Knights turned around to see Knockout push the train back, looking at all of them in rage. "You scratch my face, I scratch yours," he declared vengefully, but Bumblebee lightly caught the train car as he, RC, and Smokescreen aimed their energon blasters at him. "Yeah, I don't think so, Doc." Millie shook her head with a smirk, crossing her arms. "Why don't you leave while you can still save face?" "Oops, what face?" Rivals cracked with a laugh. "Go crawl back to Megatron in disgrace," Nunnally told him, before she smirked exactly like her brother would. "But then again, do that and your paint job will be the least of your problems." The only response Knockout could give was a slight stutter and a frustrated growl before transforming and driving away, though one of his wheels managed to get dislodged and fall off as he disappeared and left in defeat. "Well, that's it then." Smokescreen dusted his hands. "We got the relic, time to go." "Not quite," Bumblebee bleeped. "We do have one more surprise." "What kind of surprise?" RC asked somewhat suspiciously before realizing something. "What happened to Orange Boy?" "I'm right here." Jeremiah stepped out from the train. RC and Smokescreen immediately aimed their energon blasters at him. Whoa, it's okay. He's on our side now," Rivals exclaimed as he and the other humans immediately stood in between them and Jeremiah. "Wait, seriously?" Smokescreen questioned in surprise. "Our side? Yeah, right." RC didn't seem convinced. "It's the truth," Nunnally said. "I understand why you don't trust him, but he knows about me and Lelouch." That caught the 2 Autobots' attention. "He used to work with our mother before she died, her was her personal guard. My father sent him," Shirley revealed, a definite shock for Smokescreen and RC. "Jeremiah knows where the Geass order is and all the thought elevators. He even ripped out his own mechanical heart just so Shockwave wouldn't be able to track him." Millie added. "If he knows where to find the Geass order and the thought elevators, we could not only get a huge victory over the Decepticons, we can even make sure the power of Geass never falls into the wrong hands again," Nunnally stated. "There is a risk here, yes. But with what we have to gain from it, I would say it is worth it," Sayoko added. "I agree." Even Bumblebee was on board. "Besides, we already have several former Britannians on our side. Many were just as pro-Britannian as he was. What's one more?" While Smokescreen looked somewhat convinced, RC still remained skeptical. It was only natural as she was one of the few Autobots who actually knew Jeremiah's character before his transformation into a cyborg, and it certainly left a bad impression on her. "I will make no excuse for my actions." Jeremiah stepped forward to address the Autobots. "I knew full well what I was doing at the time. I understand the fact that my actions could have ended the lives of innocents. I will not ask for forgiveness, only a chance to prove my worth and loyalty. I have already sworn it to Lady Nunnally, I will swear it to Master Lelouch when I see him. And if I must, I'll even swear it to Optimus Prime. Though the word of a Britannian knight may not mean much to you given our empire's history, for me, my word is a vow that I will not break. He kneeled before the Autobots. I, Jeremiah Gottwald, pledge my services, my loyalty, my very life, to the Autobots and the Black Knights. RC could only look in shock. She could tell that he was being totally honest, and while she has seen others humbly accept their past sins and even beg for a second chance, but to see someone actually bow and pledge their very life to a cause was something she did not expect. Well, I'm convinced, Smokescreen said with a shrug. RC lowered her guard and spoke to Jeremiah directly. You'll have to talk with Optimus and Zero about what you have to give, but for now, we'll be taking you with us. I thank you. Jeremiah nodded, remaining in his kneeling position, but gasped gently at seeing a hand extended toward him. Stand up, Jeremiah Gottwald. Nunnally said with a gentle and encouraging smile. You want to prove yourself. I'd say you've done a good job so far. So, let's go save the world, okay? Jeremiah looked toward the kind and noble girl with an ambitious and gracious smile. Indeed, yes, Your Majesty. Look at you, Nunnally. Millie said as Sayoko looked toward the young girl with pride. Making daring and complicated plans, giving people a second chance, you're a Zero all your own. I learned from the best. Nunnally beamed. Welcome to the team, Orange Boy. Bumblebee said as Nunnally helped him to stand up and they began to walk away. Hey, if he's orange and now part of the Black Knights, wouldn't that make him the Orange Knight? Rivals asked, causing Shirley and Nunnally to both giggle while Smokescreen openly laughed. Orange Knight, that's a good one. Smokescreen chuckled. If he heard being called that a year ago, it would have driven Jeremiah up the wall, but this time was different. Having now joined the children of his late beloved Marianne and pledging himself to their cause, he felt like he had a true purpose again. And now hearing the name that was originally meant to humiliate and discredit him, made him feel empowered, as though it was the best compliment one could give him. The Orange Knight, Jeremiah mused internally. That does have a nice ring to it. RC looked toward the phase shifter in her hand. 1 relic down, 7 to go. Let's hope the others are having similar results. And this at the end of Season 2 Part 9 of this What If. Hope you guys like it. Do not forget to leave a comment down below and subscribe to the channel.